Well, we've got them. The new iPhones are here. Andy Ihnatko, Rene, Ritchie, Alex, Lindsay. Actually, Alex is the only one who doesn't have the new iPhone. We're going to help him choose. Biggin, littlin. We'll talk about the pros, the cons, the ups, the downs, the ins, and the outs. The new iPhone's next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 421, recorded Tuesday, September 23rd, 2014. Tap the old spice guy. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple product is worth at Gazelle.com. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code MacBreak. And by LegalZoom. Visit LegalZoom.com to save on your legal needs and gain access to a network of legal plan attorneys for guidance. LegalZoom's not a law firm, but provides self-help services at your specific direction. Visit LegalZoom.com and use the offer code MBW to get $10 off at checkout. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover all your Apple needs. And we're going to do it now, boy. Are we going to do it now? Listening in and joining us from Montreal, Canada, is the lovely and talented Rene Ritchie. Hi, Rene.
Hey, Leo. How are you?
You and I kind of swapped opening day pictures from our local Apple stores. The only difference is yours were in French, mine were in English.
Well,
what was
I have
it?
to internationalize it.
Le plus grand. What was it?
Le plus grand iPhone.
But it was bigger than big, right? So.
Yeah, plus grand que plus grand.
Que plus grand. And mine said bigger than big. It was cute with a little iris wire sculpture that they do there. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that because Rene and I both were in line. Also here, Alex Lindsay, who not only was not in line, still doesn't have his iPhone. You poor man. However do you live? However do you survive?
It was early in the morning.
Here, I'll lend you mine for the show.
I got up and Oh, there we go. Thank you. No, I got up and.
Here you go.
I had trouble logging in first thing in the morning, and then I was like, the heck with this. And then I thought about it, and half my company sat in line, and we have big projects coming up.
Half my company sat in line. I joined them.
I didn't.
As the fearless leader. That is the one I ordered online that night from Verizon. I was able to get one from Sprint, one from Verizon, but not ever from Apple. So I went to the store. But we'll talk about that.
Anyway.
Also here, Mr. Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times.
How are you today, sir?
I am fine.
I speak English well. I learned it from a book.
Andy, which phone did you choose?
Well, I chose, it's a misnomer because these are both Apple loaners. So
you're on the list.
I have one of each, and I can even hold it right side up. I've got to say that I'm leaning towards the iPhone 6 Plus because I am due for I am now off contract on phones, and so now I'm free to purchase another one through my carrier. And if I were to buy it on discount as opposed to owning it outright, I think it's going to be the 6 Plus. It's very much in line with my needs. I would definitely vote for it for running for open position on my school board. Reflects my values. It's the phone that I would most like to have a beer with, so to speak.
Apple did quite a few loaners this year. I saw reviews the Wednesday before the phones went on sale by, of course, Molly Wood at the New York Times, but then also by David Polk, formerly of the New York Times, by Walt Mossberg, formerly of the Wall Street Journal, and now of Recode. And you got one, and did you also, Rene Ritchie, get review units?
I bought the 6 Plus, but I got a review unit for the 6.
Okay. And so it's just really Alex. Each of us has 2 phones, and Alex has none.
That seems unfair.
Yes, but he has a fast-rising and exciting company that's at the forefront of a vital technology that will change and reshape our world. Frankly, I'll swap him a phone for that.
What about a crane cam, Andy?
Never.
That's right. I mean, if you don't have crane cam,
I ordered it. So
podcasting.
I got up. It was very late, or actually very early, and I did order it, and then I couldn't get on, and then I didn't get back to it until later that morning, and then I was 3 weeks wait. This makes me sad.
So let's talk about. So Alex, you're just going to have to recuse yourself. Actually, Alex,
I've been playing with everybody.
You're our guinea pig, by the way.
I know.
Let me hide that. Okay.
So
you're our guinea pig because you haven't bought yet, and are you like most of the United States of America and soon China and the rest of the world? In a conundrum, in a quandary.
It is very upsetting for me. The whole thing is that if the optical image stabilization was on the small one, it would be a no-brainer. Like I wouldn't even think about the large one.
Let me just point out something real quickly that I think is significant. These are identical except for size, right? And now the pixels per inch are not, but it's not like you get more icons on the screen.
You get an extra row, don't you? No.
It looks like the same number of rows to me.
Yeah.
Now, this is not zoomed. This is standard.
Yeah.
Zoomed would take away a row, as a matter of fact.
But wait until developers start targeting that screen. Just like when the first iPad mini came out, it was just every single full-sized iPad app only like optically shrunk down, and then after a few months people started targeting that user interface and making it better. So we're seeing that a little bit with some of the Apple made apps, but I think that we're going to really see this as an entirely new like device platform.
Well, and that's another really important point for today, which is many apps are not scaled properly at all. So this is Google Plus. None of the Google apps were modified for the new resolution. So this is Google Plus basically as it would have been on the 5S or any other phone.
Yeah. The scaler is pretty good though, especially on the 6 Plus, because it's got such a high density. That on the 6, you'll see the little line wave sometimes because it's scaling it, but on the 6 Plus, the density is so high you can barely see the scale.
Yeah, but I got to point. Okay, so again, look at this here. This is you're seeing exactly the same thing. Yeah. It's not like you're using more of the screen at all. And but these are fairly big tech. Now, again, this is for an unmodified app. You're absolutely right, Andy. It will soon be better.
Yeah, Vespa is updated. Overcast is updated.
Go ahead.
I'm saying if you have an app like the Kindle Reader where you can adjust font sizes, suddenly you can make the font a lot smaller than you had on the even on the regular 6 and still be nicely readable. So even today, it's even a good idea. I think in the future, though, it's going to be even better. I have been continuing my little experiments with keyboards. This is not a pick of the week, although I'm just going to give you a preview. There is somebody who has the stowaway keyboard, the really awesome folding keyboard that these two sides like fold in to make a continuous keyboard, and then this folds up perfectly flat like this, and you wind up with this package inside your pocket.
So let's stay on this resolution. I don't want to get too crazy. We got lots of stuff to talk about.
Okay, got it.
Right. Let's continue with the resolution. So this is Apple's app, presumably up to date.
Yeah, and you can rotate it on the 6 Plus, Leo, so you get the if you don't have it.
I turned it off. Hold on a second.
Yeah. You'll get the split view controller.
You know why? If Apple didn't rotate the home screen, the springboard, I would leave it on. But I hate it when springboard rotates, right?
Yeah, so you get the iPad style of app on horizontal. Yeah,
that's nice. Yeah, but see, what I don't like is when this happens. Ooh.
But even if we have that resolution, it still won't actually load iPad apps, correct? Or does it?
No, they can make the same view.
It still runs iPhone, and also it doesn't have a lot of the nice features of the iPad. Like a lot of the 4-finger gestures for navigation system-wide don't work. I don't believe it works with the some of the iPad accessories through the Lightning adapter. So it's very much still a super big iPhone as opposed to an iPad that's smaller.
Which I think is kind of a bummer, because I think that it would be. I mean, I would replace my Mini with the larger one, and that would be more of a temptation for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that over the past week, I have been using keyboards with this. I've been doing a lot of experiments that way, and I find that a lot of reasons why I would just toss an iPad in the bag because I'm going out for the afternoon is now being replaced with, well, I've got the iPhone 6 Plus. Maybe I'll just grab this pocket keyboard in case I want to write something, but otherwise I'm going to be good.
So here is presumably Apple Mail is updated, right?
Yep.
So as soon as this loads, I'll show you. So this is a nice spam message, but I didn't want to show you any personal details in it. So Bail Alarm, you're getting a free ad.
Because it'll see your mail list when you turn it, Leo.
Yeah. So when you turn it sideways like that, I like that, and that actually is probably the best example of why a bigger screen is useful. Because of course that doesn't do anything
That's because of all those new adaptive UI classes. So you have compact and regular classes, and this iPhone presents itself as basically developers can target it as an iPad in horizontal view.
Right. So I don't see a lot of. Again, this is the segment in which we help you decide which to buy. Alex,
right
Lindsay.
here. See,
yeah.
This is one of my chief problems. I really only actually wear one shirt that has different colors, and this is my problem. This just barely. It fits.
It fits beautifully. What are you talking about?
Tight.
Now you're probably going to want a case, so you probably should include the case, right?
Once you have a case on it, this one fits a bit better.
Yeah.
You need pockets of holding.
I know, exactly. We definitely need pockets of holding.
So new apps will come out that will take advantage of the real estate and that won't look scaled. I have to say, I see the scaling, but that won't look scaled. And then we saw, this happens every time. There's OIS in the 6 Plus, not in the 6, although a lot of people are saying the low light performance of the 6 is excellent. The OIS doesn't turn on unless you're in a low light.
Andy, have you done any like real side to sides or Rene?
I'm actually going to be doing my really intensive 8-way side-by-side comparison tests Wednesday and then into Thursday. I did some quick stuff with it in the backyard and basically in darkened rooms. I think that you can, in the right situation, you certainly can see the enhancement of the 6 Plus. I don't think you're correct. I do think it's always image stable.
Is it always on? All right.
Okay. I believe that it's always on. But the reason why the iPhone 6 does such a good job in low light is that there are a bunch of other tricks behind the scenes. For instance, there is a 3-shot behind the scenes trick that they're doing, so that let's say that you're taking a picture of somebody inside a church. It will take it will take a sequence of 3 shots without you knowing it. The first shot will be a long exposure to capture whatever's not moving around, like the actual church, and then it will actually combine that with those 2 other pictures to find sharp areas in which people weren't moving and combine that synthetically into one shot that looks where everything looks like it's nicely in focus. So there's a lot of elfin magic behind those in that hollow tree.
It is an amazing camera on both phones.
Yeah,
we did some tests with them.
Yeah, Rene.
And we did some tests with them, and it's really close. The 6 is phenomenal in low light too, but you can just see that things. If you zoom them up, you can see that the way it handles the pixels on the 6 Plus it's better. It's less noisy.
Right.
It's one of those things where if you buy the $1,000 lens as opposed to the $500 lens, some people can tell it apart. Probably Andy could tell it apart, but it's harder for me.
Well, I think it's the difference between Instagram and then your grandchildren 20 years later. Almost. I mean, seriously, almost every phone that you buy today that's a halfway decent phone will take a picture that's just fine for Instagram or Facebook. The question is, 20 years later, when you've realized that, oh, that was the last time that we really had everyone, all the family from Chicago and Boston and San Francisco all in the same place together, and you're glad that you had the iPhone 6 Plus because this is something that will take a picture good enough to actually print out and put on the back of your sofa table, whereas the other cameras are like, okay, that's nice. We'll put that on the Apple TV Mark 21, and we'll wish that Grandpa actually used a proper camera.
Actually, I can actually see a little bit of, well, this is not a good test.
And like Andy said, the processor is doing so much work in the background.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, the FaceTime, the front-facing camera is doing interesting things too. The front-facing camera here, for instance, does they're calling it one-shot HDR, and it will do it automatically. So if you're doing like a selfie like this, or if you're doing chat, it will automatically switch to a mode where it is synthetically producing an optimized image, so that the higher exposure in the background is not going to be quite as dramatic as the difference between the exposure and the foreground. Sometimes in my experience over the past weekend, if you give it a really bad lighting situation, like I was shooting a video, we can see it on YouTube, in the backyard, kind of like a couple hours before sunset, and it's in shade, and this is a 1.2 megapixel camera. Let's not forget this on the iPhone 6, and so because of the HDR, the colors are a little bit odd, but the tonality is right there. So there's so much tricks out there. That's why you really do have to take it out and rock and roll with it for a few days before you appreciate that it has specs that go beyond what the actual hardware is.
How long you've had it for more than a week now? Is that right?
No, I've had it since Friday.
Oh, okay. So we're just talking about differences. Obviously, screen resolution, camera, and then battery life. How about that?
It's a monster. I go to sleep and it's still at 38%, which is nuts. That for the 6 Plus.
Yeah, I have yet to put when I'm finally wrapping up my last Android phone stuff today, which means I can finally put my SIM in this AT&T iPhone. So it's only been used on Wi-Fi since Friday, but I was charged up fully on Friday and had to charge it again today. And that's a guy who's been spending all weekend playing with it and watching movies with it and listening to music with it. It's just a monster, this iPhone 6 Plus battery.
6 Plus. How about the 6? What's the battery life for the 6?
The 6 is good. I think I would put it at a little bit better than what you get on the iPhone 5S, but not so dramatically better that it would influence your buying decision. I mean, there are a lot of people who actually have tethering on their iPads because they can just use that as your 2-day broadband base station. I think that this is going to attract a lot of people for the same reason. If you're using this also as your internet access point as you travel, or even spending the day outside the office, you will be able to, after using this as your base station for your MacBook or any other notebook all day long, you'll be able to board the commuter train home and still have enough juice left to have a good time on that train ride home.
Yeah, I've had the exact same thing. The battery life, some people have been confused because when you first install it, if you restore from a backup, it's got to download everything again. It's got to re-index Spotlight. There's a lot of stuff going on. So the first couple of days, it's hard to get good battery ratings. But it's lasting a little bit longer than my iPhone 5S, nowhere nearly as long as the 6 Plus. And to Andy's point, on Rogers now, Rogers LTE is obscene. It's not even LTE Advanced yet, but they've got, I think, 15 to 20 lanes of LTE, and I'm getting 90 down in my condo and 90 down at Starbucks, which is twice as fast as my broadband.
Let me turn off Wi-Fi. I'm curious what AT&T is giving us here in the studio.
I don't think AT&T has the enhanced. I think Verizon's the only one
Verizon.
in the US.
Oh, this is a Verizon. Let me turn off.
I got 90 down on Josh's T-Mobile.
Sorry? That's because no one uses T-Mobile.
Yeah, that's probably true.
That's what I ordered. I want the Wi-Fi calling.
A couple of other points. Yeah, T-Mobile has Wi-Fi calling.
That was my number one.
The Apple Store was telling us, and I asked several people, that T-Mobile is locked to T-Mobile. It is not carrier locked, we have learned.
Yep. I bought mine completely unlocked.
And another point, which I think is great, is the Verizon version is SIM card unlocked, as it has been in the past, which is very good news because, for instance, I could take this to England, have Verizon here, get all those bands of LTE, but still take it to England and use T-Mobile and have the free international.
And also now the new Verizon will allow you to do both data and voice.
Voice over LTE, I think so, yeah.
So now you can.
So let me turn off Wi-Fi and do a
Verizon
speed test because I'm curious what we're going to get here. Now, I don't know what Verizon is like normally here. So, all right. So I think, is that all of the pros and cons that we would need to help Alex make the right choice? Yeah. Size, obviously. Battery life,
to me,
camera.
Number one thing for me is just knowing how much of a difference the optical image stabilization is.
And it seems like not much.
If you wait, well, I doubt it. I have not done my intensive tests yet. But every time I do this once a year, where I truly fill my pockets with like 8 different phones and a real camera, and every single time, the only shots in which I can tell that the iPhone 5 or the 5S has not done as well as the others are the ones where the other cameras have optical image stabilization. The iPhone 5S only had to ramp up the sensitivity and do the best it could. So I'll be very, very surprised if the iPhone 6 Plus does not take better pictures than the iPhone 6 in like indoor situations in which you really want that sort of thing.
I just feel like that's my number one frustration with my phone, with the phone sensor, is specifically semi-low light and getting soft images. That just drives me absolutely crazy.
I think it was Matthew Panzarino who took it to Disneyland to test it. He said he was
liked
getting
his
about
images.
two f-stops better with the optical image stabilization.
TechCrunch's Matthew Panzarino also did video shooting and showed how quickly the video adapts. He was on, what was he on, the Matterhorn or one of those roller coasters, and it adapted quite well.
The only other thing I'd point out is it depends on your use case. For example, I quite often use my iPhone 5S when I was walking around with coffee or if I'm on the streets. I can't do that with the iPhone 6. It's just big enough that it's not that I can't reach, it's that when I try, I feel like I'm going to drop my phone and I just stop and I say, no, I'm going to put it down. It's a hand and a halfer. It is the iPhone 6 I can use perfectly well one-handed without any problems because it's so thin, it's so rounded, it still feels great. The iPhone 6 Plus, I can't do that anymore.
I think that it's the first iPhone where I think that having it in a really good case is going to change how you use it. I can't wait for really good like folio cases, like fold over cases come out for this, because you're absolutely right. I mean, I've been carrying this without the case only because I want to be able to feel like how warm does it get in the back when I'm using it, and all this sort of stuff when you're just testing a phone. But I also have the silicone sleeve for it, and when it's in that sleeve, I have a little bit more of a firm control over it. This is one of the slipperiest phones I think Apple has made. I was just putting it down on the end table just about a couple hours ago while I was getting other stuff ready, and I could just see it suddenly slightly going.
It's like the Nexus 4. Remember that? It would fall off a flat table.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that you're right. Once we have cases that allow you to get a little bit better grip on it, I wouldn't. I can certainly walk and use it so long as I don't have to access most of the screen. I mean, my basic takeaway on it is on the 6 and the 6 Plus is that your default should be the 6. I think that any iPhone user will be extremely happy with the 6 and will not have a complaint about it. If you have a reason for the 6 Plus to have this larger screen, whether you want to, you're a system administrator and you want to do remote access and have more screen, you watch a lot of movies, you read a lot of books, you really want the extra battery life for acting as a base station, or assuming that the camera tests pay off as well as I hope they will, you really are frustrated by low light photography in other iPhones, then get it. But don't. You have to have a reason in mind. Don't think that, well, I don't know which one to get, I may as well get the bigger one, because I think you're going to be kind of unhappy with it, especially after spending 5 years using phones that are, as small as this.
Look like toys now.
I had to get out like the pre-stretched out version, and holy cats, is that like a difference? Like the screen is about as long as this screen is wide. It's amazing.
Yeah, all of the iPhone 6 Plus. The iPhone 6 Plus now looks like a wide as an iPad.
Yeah.
Yes.
All of the people I know who have come from 5Ss or even less are struggling a little bit with the 6 Plus because it is such a big jump.
Yep.
I surprised myself. I've been using a phone of the 6 Plus's side for the last 6 months, and I really like the 6. I think the size of this, I've always felt 4.7 is kind of exactly the right size for a phone.
I prefer the size. I said for me, it's just that I take so many photos and I'm so attached to them. It's the only thing. And if Apple had put, and I'm sure that Apple thought that out.
Yeah. What is that screenshot? Oh, that's showing us.
This is the amount of pixels in the original iPhone, which is way down here in the corner.
We know that. That was 2007.
And the current.
Yeah, you might as well show a BlackBerry pager next to that. I mean, it
really does feel like the iPhone 6 is a linear successor to the iPhones, and the 6 Plus is something new. It's like the giant-sized cousin from Greenland.
I agree.
Come to visit.
I agree. And just like you, Andy, unless you have a compelling reason to go with the larger screen, for instance, Lisa really wants the extra battery life and the larger screen. I think that most iPhone users will be overwhelmed by the 6 Plus and be extremely happy with the 6.
Yeah. This is why when people were pre-ordering it, staying up all night, I was saying, look, you really want to hold both of these in your hands before you choose one. Even if you do have 2 weeks to send it back, it's like you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're just struggling for 2 weeks to get a grips on this, and then you're stuck.
Yeah, this is more. The 6 Plus is more like carrying a 1520. Here's your M8.
It is, yeah.
And your M8 is actually closer in size to the little iPhone than the big iPhone. You know, I really feel like, and I've been carrying a OnePlus One, which is exactly the same size as the 6 Plus, and even that I prefer to the 6 Plus. It's something about.
Yeah, and this is the 1520.
The 1520 is massive.
Yeah, and it's actually, I mean, it's actually not that much larger.
That's a
but
6-inch screen.
It's larger enough that this extra like centimeter or whatever is kind of like the breaking point for convenience. This I don't feel like I don't feel I need to take extra water and hire some kids to carry my other stuff with me if I'm carrying this with me. This is still about as big as a phone can be and still read as a phone.
My visceral reaction to the iPhones, and it surprised me, was the 6, the 4.7 inch is a jewel, is just right. It feels and looks gorgeous. The curvature of the glass is so nice. The size is just right. So I just feel like anybody with this phone is going to, especially existing iPhones users, are going to be happy.
And if you were already happy with the phone that you had, I mean, the camera that you had, if you're already happy with the camera that you had and the pictures you were taking, then I think that the 6 is the way to go. If Again, if you're really particular and you take a lot of low light stuff for whatever reason, then I still want to see the tests. You know, I guess I could still change if I wanted to. wait.
I'm going to post.
Well, you should do what
bullet.
I did, buy both.
I might.
That's what you should just do. I mean, face it.
Well, see, but the thing is now I have to. My whole thing is I always have one iPhone and one Android phone, and the M8 has been great, but the new Panasonic is coming out, and now I feel like I need to get that because that's got an even better camera.
The Panasonic is a camera with a little bit of phone.
Because who talks on the phone as much
Like
as
the
you do?
Galaxy
You know, I mean,
camera.
all I need. I mean, that's the perfect thing is a great camera that happens
Molly
to do phone
Wood,
calls.
in her New York Times review, said, and I thought this was interesting, that the 6 is a little bit too small and the 6 Plus is a little bit too big. She felt like they missed the sweet spot in the middle. I'm not sure I'd agree with her, but that's one take on it.
You can't Samsung the category because Samsung's already doing that.
Well, in a way,
gotta-
you have Samsunged it just by having two.
No, you've basically produced options because it's a reflection of the fact that people actually do want these things. The fact that the Galaxy Note has sold phenomenally well,
Absolutely.
and that other makers have followed suit is not because of trends and not because just they want attention. Because damn it, these phones sell. But it would be a terrible thing if you could only get a 5.5-inch iPhone. So it's great that they have this spread spectrum that is just a rationally large phone for most people, a big phone for people who tend to be a little bit more intense and broad with what they use a phone for. I do think it would be a great thing if they were to decide we're specifically going to create a small one for people with smaller hands or people who just don't want to be dominated by phones. But I'm sure that won't happen.
Well, it's nice to have a
Here.
choice.
Exactly.
Let's put it that way.
It's amazing when you use this for just a few minutes and you look back at an iPhone 5S and it looks so thick and small and square. And then you look back at one of the phones Andy held up and it looks like a little toy. It's amazing how quickly your brain recalibrates.
Having used all the iPhones and not full time for the last couple of years, I admit, the 6 itself is easily the nicest iPhone they've ever made. I really feel like this is a stunning work of art.
Apple says that every year they say we
this time
believe
it really
this is the best iPhone we've ever made, and of course, I mean, in terms of specs, in terms of features, that's always true. But this really is the first time it feels like they could almost have called this the iPhone 2, like Mark II, because it's almost as if every iPhone before this was just laying groundwork for this, because this is so superior in every way. This is hands down the biggest upgrade I think they've ever done in hardware.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let's take a break. I want to talk about line experiences, and there's a lot more. iOS 8, we now can talk about that a little bit. It wasn't out when we convened last time. Lots to say and do. We've got a great panel to do it, and we have the question engine up, thanks to Alex Lindsay. So twit.to, that's our URL shortener, twit.to/MBW421, for those of you who are listening live. We've got a major upgrade to the question engine.
Are you ready? Who are we going to talk about?
Well, what do you mean, who are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to take a break for an ad, so if you want to vote on which ad you want to hear, we could do that. But right now, we've got questions. This is the moderators. There you go. That's the interface.
There you go.
So not only can you put questions in now and vote questions up and down, but there's an agenda. This is a new feature, nice, where you can put, and Alex has put in stories, and you can vote those. Can you? Not
can't
yet.
vote those yet. So you can't see those yet.
Soon
That's
you'll
all.
be able
That's
to do
private
that.
to us at the moment.
Okay.
We're working on
like
deciding
this.
how we're going to expose that.
Yeah.
Andy is constantly updating the process.
Andy,
so,
not Ihnatko. Andy, you're your guy. I've Gotson, who is the author of this.
And so yeah. So but you'll see some of those pop up as we go and. But yeah, so definitely vote on questions. There's a lot of questions in here right now, so definitely vote on some and ask a few if you don't see yours.
And it's still in beta. In fact, I see Peter. We don't know his last name because it has non-Roman characters in it, and or at least characters with heavy something, and non-ASCII characters in it. And he says, "You got to get this to work with Unicode."
And all
Alex
I can say
says,
is
"Yes,
yes."
That's an easy upgrade. So this is still in beta, and it's a chance for you to also weigh in on things like that. But do vote up questions, and we'll get to those a little later on the show. Our show today brought to you by Gazelle.com. Now that you've seen the discussions of which phone you might want to look at, perhaps you're ready to pull the trigger, and maybe you already bought a new iPhone, and you're wondering, now what do I do with the old one? Well, if you don't have an Uncle Jerry to give it to, or a niece or a nephew, maybe you want to just get a little money for it. In fact, you might want to go to Gazelle before you give it to Uncle Jerry to find out.
Yeah.
Find out whether you want to give it to Uncle Jerry.
How rich you're feeling.
Yeah. Gazelle will buy your old, not just iPhone, but your iPads, cell phones from a variety of manufacturers. I've got my new Moto X on the way, so I'm going to see how much I can get for the old Moto X. You can get money for Samsung tablets, even your Microsoft Surface. So this is a great place to go to get a quote. These quotes are locked in for 30 days. That means you don't have to decide today what you're going to do, but you can at least get the price. And then within 30 days, when you pull the trigger, they'll send you a box. They pay the postage. Very, very nice. You just pile all those gadgets in the box, and I suggest you don't just do one. We are sending. We got some really old iPhones we're sending back.
You finally gave up.
Well,
Like,
we
"All right, we're
slide
not gonna
down. What we do is we slide down. So
Right.
we get the new ones, then relatives, kids get the next
Right,
generation
exactly.
down, and ex-spouses get the next generation
That's where
down.
a lot of my iPads go.
Yeah, exactly. So finally, Gazelle gets the ones that have fallen off the edge where nobody wants them. So Gazelle will take them. And even then, you're getting some money for this, which is awesome. Instead of it collecting in a dust in a drawer or getting thrown in the trash, which is really not the right thing to do. Gazelle is the best way to recycle those old gadgets. Get your 30-day quote. They'll send you the box, so you ship it into them. Fill that box up. You get the maximum amount of money. They will look at your device. If you forget to wipe the data, don't worry. They always do that. Look at that, $175 for a 16-gig Wi-Fi iPad mini.
And this is
a great price.
This is an important thing to decide, when to do this. Because what happens with me is that I hand it off to my wife hands it off to the kids, and the kids throw it on the ground.
Right.
So you have to decide when you're going to sell it and who you're going to hand it to first.
That's $128 you just threw on the ground. What are you doing? So Gazelle.com, by the way, they will pay you in cash. You can get a check, but you can also get a PayPal credit if you're in a hurry. And I recommend, if you do a lot of Amazon shopping, getting the Amazon gift card, because they bumped the price of that by 5%. Isn't that nice? Ain't that sweet? Gazelle. They've sent out nearly $175 million now to over 1 million customers, including me. We use it all the time. Gazelle.com. Get your quote today. Get that new gadget. This is a time really that would be appropriate. And a lot of you are doing the 2-year upgrade, and you have an old 5. They'll absolutely good price, top dollar for your 5. So that's a good deal. So who waited in line? You did, Rene?
Yep.
I did. Andy, I guess you probably didn't do any line sitting. Uh-oh, he's muted. Is it us or is it him?
All right, that's me.
Oh, sorry.
I waited in the FedEx line at my house.
A line
Number
of one.
one line, baby. And there were still 2 people from the Chinese Mafia in line when ahead of me. How did that happen?
Did you see those videos from New York? It's got to be a little depressing for the Apple employees. In fact, let me show you the video from the Santa Rosa store. Do you have that there, Chad, or shall I pull it up?
It seems like you don't want to. You obviously don't want to apply any kind of a lot of rules. Apple kind of like whoever shows up, and the rules of lines are the rules of lines. But I know that one of our guys was sitting in line and it just one person kept on turning into 10. Like it was. Like,
we actually had revolts when that happened. If somebody tried to save a place and then 4 hours later 10 other people showed up, there were massive revolts when that happened. I think that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
This is a picture of the line. This is Okay, you're going to show.
This is the one from New York. I
This
don't
is-
have the one from.
I have mine, and
you
I'll
have
show
the
you.
one.
I'll show you. But go ahead.
Okay.
Show the one from New York. So this is the problem: is that it's so valuable in the Chinese market, and is not for sale in the Chinese market yet. That people there are paid to sit in line. This was a documentarian who shot this, and just get these phones. And many of them don't speak English. They're being paid to do this. And of course, they don't share the there's nothing wrong with this. It's completely legal, and I'm not even saying it's a bad thing, but it doesn't exactly communicate the enthusiasm we've seen in older Apple lines where everybody's there is very excited. They're Apple fans.
Yeah.
Let me show you my pictures, Chad. Oh, and there were some busts and stuff.
Yeah, last year China was day and date. This year it is not.
Yeah, and that's why you're seeing it, because probably the phone that they're buying for $949, and I'm sure they're getting the top of the line phones they can
Did
get,
they list
is worth
why?
$2,000 or $3,000.
Well, did you see that customs footage of all the seizures? They had a guy just throwing looked like 30 or 50 gold iPhones onto a table that they seized at customs.
Oh, wow. So I got
hard.
it. I was going okay, I'll tell you my story. I was going to order online the week before,
Right.
but you remember Apple Store had trouble opening, and I finally gave up because I was sleepy. Did order one for my mom. She got her 6 Plus day and date from Sprint. She's so happy. She loves it. But she was using a Galaxy Note 2, so she was used to
good son.
She
What
was-
a good boy.
We FaceTimed immediately, and it's so great to FaceTime on the phone as opposed to the iPad because it's And then I bought this little one just because I wasn't convinced
Little
that
one.
This little bitty phone. I wasn't convinced we'd have a phone, so I ordered one from Verizon. Verizon's website worked pretty well, as I told you last week. But John Slanina, Jammer B in our office, who was already planning to go I think he was planning to go about 4 a.m., got a cold feet because he saw the Boy Genius report saying that only 2 to 3% of the shipped phones in the stores were going to be the 6 Pluses, and we all wanted 6 Pluses. So he went at 8 p.m., 7th or 8th in line. There he is at the Santa Rosa Apple store. There's our friend Gary Koffler, who was right ahead of him. This is the line right before we got in, the Apple store there. And you can see they put all of the iPhones in the back. I don't know what they did in Montreal, but they put all the iPhones in their beautiful white album boxes way in the back. And we're, of course, counting tall boxes versus short boxes.
Yeah.
It looked like a pretty even distribution. I was happy to see that. You can't see in this picture. Hey, I apologize. This is an Android phone. It's just not as crisp.
Our store had 9 6 Pluses that weren't pre-reserved. I pre-reserved, so I didn't have to get there too early. I got there around 5:30, 6 a.m., and I had 6 Plus reserved. But the people in line, they said I think they had like 9 of the 6 Pluses.
Holy cow. Well, we had considerably more, and I did not have a reserved one. So I'm starting to freak out with John, and at 3 a.m. I decided to go in. This is the display. You took the same picture. Yeah. Only yours says le plus grand que grand or something like that. Bigger than bigger. And I love this. This wire thing is really cool. This was in your store too. I guess all the Apple stores had them. They probably had one Chinese factory alone just making the wire things.
Right.
Plus grand que grand.
Plus grand que grand.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can find the video. I know I have it here somewhere that I took of the countdown. This is what you want. And I remember the last line I was in, I think, was when the original iPhone came out. Can you get my audio? Because there's audio on this. I don't know if you can. Can you hear me? I'm giving you something else.
I don't know
what
it turned up all the way.
Well, let me start playing. Then you're going to get a nice loud. What's going on? Hey, Google. Oh. All right. This is fun.
It's great.
This is 8 a.m. We've all been there. I've been there 5 hours. Many have been there 12. The Apple employees come out first, right? Like a football team. And they had let 75 people into the mall. There were another 100 people outside. They were letting them in groups of 25. I was number 41 in line from 3 a.m. And there go the first people in there.
The lines were long this year.
If I asked the Apple people, I said, "Is this you?" He said, "No, they were this long when the 5 came out. I think every other year they're pretty long."
Yeah, we had 350 in Montreal, but I think they had 5,000 at Fifth Avenue.
Do you want to hear what, in comparison, the other documentary?
Yeah, let's hear what the Chinese folks were doing when the store opened. And all right,
And they're like, "What are they doing?"
they have no idea.
Okay.
It's cold. I've been here a long time. When do I get my $100?
You know, the first
Holy
iPhone never
cow.
came to Canada, and people set up websites to sell them to Canadians, jailbroken and exorbitant markups. I mean, it's a supply and
I
demand
brought
issue.
Amber MacArthur one. I jailbroke it and brought it to her, and she still didn't use it. She stayed with her BlackBerry. I was actually heartbroken.
She's good. She's a good Canadian.
She's a good Canadian. She wanted to be loyal.
I know. Say that I'm a little bit bothered by this now.
Are you?
Like, yeah, I mean, it was exciting for the first couple of years with the new iPhones and the new iPads. There's a sense of celebration. There's it's new, it's novel, it's wonderful, and we're there. Despite Apple's dominance in the market, we're still kind of a community now. I see people camping out for reasons that they want to buy them to resell them someplace else. People who probably don't want to be there anymore. Altercations because now people are, like you said, having problems that, gee, well, look, you were one guy this morning and now they're 10 guys. You brought in 10 guys. What's that all about? And then even if you have let's say that they're an impossibly curated line where, everybody is blessed. Everybody answered 3 trivia questions about the making of the original Macintosh and the Apple IIe to prove that they're real Apple people. Even so, you can't get around the idea that this is a flashy, trendy consumer item that everybody is, I'm so overjoyed. Look, let's applaud this person for buying something. Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it's a little bit of consumer society, isn't it? Yeah.
And I don't want to put cold water on everybody about this. It's just that with each passing year, I get a little bit less excited about the line and more wishing that I just wish that they would just simply say, look, we'll do pre-orders for the store. Basically, I guarantee you we will sell out of everything that we have. Just show up at the time that we're told that we'll have a phone for you and come in, because, like I said, just for me, it just gets a little sadder every single time.
I'm kind of with you. I'm a little queasy making that. The two people ahead of me in line were clearly buying it for somebody else. They were not there to buy it for themselves, even though they said they were. That's fine. The guy behind me was excited. But was apparently a professional line sitter, because he says, yeah, this is nothing like Best Buy. I go to Best Buy every Black Friday. And I said, well, you go with something in mind to buy? He said, no, we just go. And so he obviously loves the line. But there were people like me and Gary. I met a guy in line. He was showing me his iPad app. He turned out to be a college classmate of mine that we hadn't met before. And we had a great conversation. So there's still a little bit of that. I remember the first time I was in the iPhone line in 2007, I was sitting behind two Googlers. One of them was a Google Reader developer. He said, yeah, I was up all night adapting it to work better with the iPhone. There was this, and this was in Petaluma, there was this sense of a cultural phenomenon. Now it's just a sense of really gross consumerism, frankly.
I see the same 12 people. I mean, every year. I always see them every year in the lineup, and they're always there. They're always near the front. I think the first guy came 24 hours early this time, but all of them were at the front of the line. Talk to them. It's the only time I see them, and it is that sense of community. And there are scalpers. There's some people who have dual citizenship who come because their countries aren't getting them for a while, and it's an easy way for them to pay for their phone if they take a couple back with them.
Yeah.
You know, with some of these countries, it's an easy way to pay for college. I mean, you know, if
I agree. It's a lot of money. I understand why
the markups are crazy on these phones. You know, I think that they're anywhere from 200 to 400% in a lot of these countries, and so it's I
was a little perturbed that the Apple employees were somewhat unprepared. There was a little bit of disingenuousness on their part. They all denied that they knew what was in stock or how much was in stock. I'm sure they're told to do that. I was a little disappointed. 2 or 3 of them said, we do not have any unlocked phones, period. I said, the T-Mobile's unlocked. They said, no, it is not. It is locked. It's carrier locked to T-Mobile. That was a lie.
Right.
Whether they knew better, I don't know.
Right.
But that was a lie. And I think management probably was told them that because they wanted. And by the way, the T-Mobile phones, by the time I got there, were gone. I don't think they. In fact, by the time John got there, they were gone. They might have had one. So again,
Now, is that because of why would we think that they would be told to?
I don't. Well, I think because Apple
as many.
Officially starts selling unlocked phones in a few weeks.
Right.
The unlocked, no carrier phone, and I think that for some reason,
which might be to discourage scalpers because the unlocked ones are more valuable.
Right.
Overseas.
That's what my suspicion.
Maybe.
In any
Our
event,
computers went down. Like the computers went down. Like Rogers Sales Central always goes down, but the Apple system went down for a while too.
That's right. They had a very elaborate reservation system that they were supposed to use, an electronic reservation system. It went down. I knew that it had gone down in Canada because you tweeted it, Rene.
Yeah.
And then they came. They didn't do it to us. We thought, well, it's 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Still hadn't done it. They were letting people into the mall, and it still hadn't done it. Finally, shortly before 8 a.m., they started handing out paper hat check tickets with handwritten numbers on it.
Well, you were supposed to get a text message that would have a passbook that you could load up.
That worked, by the way. It worked the next day because John went back to the store on Saturday, and the system was up. And it actually worked quite well. He got a message that said, you have reserved this such and such phone. We are holding it for you. You have to the end of the day to come get it. So that's a great solution. Gets people out of line, gets things moving.
I think that Apple's going to have to start having a real policy about how they manage this, starting with you're not allowed to camp out overnight. We will basically have security saying if you want to stand from 4 a.m. onward, that's fine, but you're not laying down and you're not going to be hanging around outside our store before this hour. I'm just I guess one of my other worries is that we've all seen sort of the arc that the Black Friday sales have gone, where from this sort of insider thing where, oh yes, I know I'm kind of weird, I like to do my Christmas shopping Friday morning, to now that there's sales and now there are people who are outside that community of weird people, and down to, well, on Friday morning, I will have 1, a slice of leftover pumpkin pie, and 2, about 2 hours worth of news stories about who got shot in front of a Walgreens or in front of a Kmart because they wanted to save $60 on an HD TV, and they thought that some other guy was trying to get the thing that he had his hands on first.
On the other hand, here's
bad press.
Here's from Trisha D tweeting the Fire phone for the Amazon Fire, the line for the Amazon Fire phone. In a lot of ways, this is, for everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. You say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything you say, this is the massive success of Apple's marketing. But everything one, and quality too. Right?
And I think part of it is that Apple likes to rub it in. I mean, like everybody else tries to do things that create lines, and nothing creates lines like the iPhone. I mean, it's just.
The Who was excited about all the crowds until Cincinnati. The Rolling Stones was probably excited about the crowds until Altamont. And I just want Apple to take control of this before they have a 1/100th scale Altamont situation, or something that happens that's so ugly that, okay, now we're forced to do something about this because this ugly thing that is now taking the news cycle, that it's not, instead of people reporting about 12 million iPhones sold on the first 3 hours, now they're talking about, that kid that almost died because, okay, well, perhaps we'll do some guidelines, we'll do fine.
I do want to point out that, like, my local Apple store, the Fairview Point Clare one, they did a really good job of managing expectation. Like, they came out and said, look, we have this many iPhone 6 Pluses. And then when the last person had got the ticket for one, they said, we don't have those anymore. So if you're waiting for those, we can't help you. But there's a reservation system. You can go and use it right now, and you can get one as soon as they are of it. And they did a very good job making sure that nobody hit the store with false expectations. Everyone knew what they could get and what they wanted to get by the time they got inside.
And a great many people did not actually get what they wanted and still stayed in line and still participated because they sold out of a lot of things. I didn't get what I wanted. I wanted a T-Mobile. I got an AT&T. Because that's what they had.
Right.
But I'm a little different because I had to have it before the radio show the next day.
Right.
So, Steve Jobs would always get in line at the Palo Alto store, participate. Tim Cook following along. This is from IDG.
Going to the end?
He's smiling.
Come out here this morning, Tim. Good to see you.
I think this is a good thing. Every CEO should do this.
Good to see you.
In fact, every CEO should go to the Apple line and see why people are doing what they're doing.
Yes.
Right. Do the King Richard speech.
Yeah.
J.K. Shin should be there on the left.
Today, you'll remember. Today is what is wits. You will tell your children and your grandchildren.
So many Android phones
if he
taking
really
pictures
wanted
of
to
them.
be a sport, if he really wanted to be a sport, he'd do it in Willy Wonka cosplay, complete with the
Here's a
cane
gold
and doing the
ticket.
somersault.
That was Steve's thing. He's got to figure out another character.
Did Steve get in line or did he just come in later?
I think he
Seemed like
came in later.
He came in later. He would go into the store, I think. Tim's actually greeting people who are in line, which is neat.
And he's posing for the selfies, the cookies. Sorry.
Good for him. And, of course, note the news cameras surrounding him. This is very good PR as well.
Health Kit is working wonders for him.
He looks good. You know, we were talking yesterday on iPad Today. Sarah Lane was looking at the picture of him standing next to Dr. Dre, the famous balcony picture. She said, you know, either Dre isn't as buff as we all thought, or Tim's been lifting. And I said, you should see Tim's guns. I think I can't remember where I saw it. Was it on the Charlie Rose interview or somewhere? That guy clearly has massive guns. This guy is pumped. All right, I'm sorry. I shouldn't. I'm
Carrying the weight of Apple on his back.
Yeah, really. Obviously very happy, smiling, jolly Tim Cook. And rightly so. He's the CEO of the most valuable company in the world. Oh, here we go. Show this, because he actually is now in the store, and he's going to participate in the traditional, the annual ceremony of the running of the geniuses.
And then he married them off 2 by 2 to go off and make new Apple employees.
Sung Young.
How did he get in early?
Hey, wait a minute. Get out of here. You don't have a blue shirt.
It's like any other store with a Steadicam.
That's a pretty neat moment. I know it's a testament to raw consumerism, et cetera, but there's a cultural thing that's happening here too that's really great.
Let me point out that I'm podcasting to you on a table that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phones and 2 computers on it. So perhaps I'm not the person to that was the Zen Buddhist of minimalism.
Well, the truth is that we're like the alcoholics who work at the Jim Beam factory. We got into it because we wanted all of the gadgets we could get. Yes. I did.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You figured out a way to do it nice and legally.
Yeah. I couldn't afford it, so I had to do it. Let's take a break. Some questions from the question engine coming up in just a little bit. I'm sure there's other stuff to talk about with the iPhone. I want to talk about iOS 8. You did a great, iMore did a great iOS 8 piece, tips, but also bugs. There's a not insignificant number of problems with iOS 8. I've run into a few myself. When we come back. But first, a word from Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes your next website sing. Squarespace, I admire these guys so much. Started by Anthony Castellana in his college dorm room because he wanted a better content management system. It has now become the premier web hosting company. Their site just never goes down. The incredible uptime. You cannot kill a Squarespace site. And he did something very smart early on. They tied the content management system tightly to the web hosting. And so they're very intimately connected. It's not just some software running on top of some servers. And that's one of the reasons you can't bring a Squarespace site down. Also, such attention to the code, the details, it's beautiful code. When they update their platforms and they do it regularly, you get the benefit because suddenly your site supports the latest web technologies. You don't have to worry about it. Things like mobile responsive design. The thing in the last couple of years has been, no, you don't have a separate mobile site. You have one site that fits any size screen. Of course, all Squarespace templates do that. They all have the best e-commerce built in. Their e-commerce is sweet. Everything from the merchant account to shipping to, I mean, it's spectacular. If you're looking for a e-commerce site, Squarespace is a great choice. Starting at $8 a month, and with a yearly plan, you even get the domain name for free, and they hook it all up for you. It's easy to post to. You pay attention to your content. Squarespace handles the nitty-gritty technical details. They also have incredible apps. The Squarespace Metric app for iPhone and iPad that lets you check stats like page views, visitors, social media followers. They've got a blogging app. For photographers, I love this, the new Portfolio app. If you're a photographer, a lot of photographers use Squarespace for their personal website or their business website. The Portfolio app will pull the images down from your site. And so if you have a client and you go over with your iPad to say, let me show you the images, you could do that right from your site. You don't have to preload the iPad. It's just sweet.
You know, I talked about this earlier, but we actually built an entire manual in Squarespace, for a client.
That's a great idea.
A whole training, There's a whole training program for a client where we found that they wanted it to work on every different platform, easily. And we were trying to figure out how to code it, how to build it, iBooks, all these other things. And we were like, let's just try Squarespace. And it worked perfectly.
Really marvelous. Squarespace.com. You can try it free. You don't have to have a credit card or even our offer code. Just click the Get Started button. And I invite you to do that. You know what's great is you can import your existing content if you have a site on Blogger or Typepad or a lot of the other WordPress, all the other APIs. And do that. Get all the images will come over. All the links will be the same. I mean, it really preserves all the SEO. And then, with a click of the mouse, you can change the template. Boom, like that. And completely change your look. But all the content's preserved. It's a very elegant way to do it. I want you to visit squarespace.com. Press the Get Started button. All I ask is if you decide to buy, you use our offer code MacBreak. MacBreak, one word. You'll get 10% off on your new account. There is a special deal going on right now, promotion for the MacBreak Weekly audience, and I want to leave this out. They're giving away a full year of their highest level, premium level service. It's worth more than $288 to a randomly selected listener. Right now, all you have to do is tweet Better Websites for All using the hashtag Squarespace MacBreak. Better Websites for All, hashtag Squarespace MacBreak, and you'll be in the drawing for a premium service, top-of-the-line service. If you currently have a Squarespace site, actually add that to the URL so we can talk about it on a later show. Better Websites for All, hashtag Squarespace MacBreak. Squarespace.com, a better web awaits. That's Squarespace. We love it. Question number 1 from Jim. Tim Cook has said, new technology. Oh, it just got voted down, or is it because I'm taking it? Oh, I see what you did.
Sorry.
You clicked a button. Tim Cook has said new technologies will be presented this year. We've seen the Apple Watch. We know that'll be out sometime next year. What else? TV?
Max.
I'm waiting for a new Apple TV. They updated it last week for Beats. Huh?
Spring. New boxes spring.
Spring, you think?
Yeah.
How about the rumor, which Jim
Apple
Dalrymple
Pay would count,
poo-pooed, that there'd be new iPads October 21st? Jim
Yeah,
said
he
no.
poo-pooed that day.
He
That
said
day
not
is
that
the
day,
iPad day.
but
Yeah.
it will be sometime next month.
Be surprising if they missed a year. That'd be the first time they've done that.
Yeah. And there is something you could do to the iPad. You could put a fingerprint reader on it. You put Touch ID on it.
That'd be huge.
It needs it. I miss it. I'm so used to unlocking my store and unlocking the phone by putting my finger on it. It works so well.
And it's so bad now because you touch it and it takes you 10 seconds to realize there's no Touch ID sensor, and then you put in your passcode, and then it unlocks like an animal, and it's such a slow process now.
It feels bad, yeah. What else? Apple
Mac
Pay
Minis.
will be coming out next month. Mac Minis will never emerge.
I can only
just forget it.
Dream. I have to dream about
Dream on. They're dead.
Retina MacBook Pro.
Well, you're saying
Retina
the
MacBook
Broadwell chips will come out.
I'm hoping. I mean, the
soon.
thing is, as far as I know, the thing is done. It's just waiting on Broadwell chips.
Right. And so it's up to Intel, in other words. Dr. Mom says that she believes that there will be more health features released on the iWatch when it comes out, but they have to await FDA. What the FDA is doing is interesting. They're trying to change the rules to make a broader range of health devices not require approval.
Right.
And when that happens, they call it GRAS, G-R-A-S. When that happens, then she suspects Apple will say, "Oh, and by the way, we could do this."
Well, and I think HealthKit and HomeKit are going to be huge, massive. I think that the timing
What's the deal
is
with
really.
HomeKit? What's happening with that? Anything?
Well, I think that as we start to see, I mean, we're just starting to see it come out. So but I think that the ability to have being able to interact with many devices, and being able to have that all work is it opens up a lot of opportunity for developers. It opens a lot of opportunities for Apple. I mean, everyone's talked about getting into the home, in a big way. And I think that there's so many interactions that we haven't started having with, our refrigerator and a lot of other things that, of knowing what's there, having it know what's going on. I think that those things are things that we're going to continue to see, grow. I mean, even just stuff like when you think about Bluetooth LE, when this starts to work and you put those little, trackers on it, you'll never lose your keys or your stuff again. It's like your iPhone, like, where are my keys? That's what I do now. I use my little tracker on my keys. But the point is knowing where everything is, understanding how, the context of where those things are. I think that, and the watch, I think, is going to be a key piece of this. But I think that it's a pretty explosive opportunity, and everyone's looking for it. I mean, Google's trying to go down that path as well. It's not something that is Apple's only doing, but of course, Apple has an opportunity to kind of move it down the path.
On the HomeKit topic, Leo, it's just a question of time because they got iOS 8 when we did and the new phones when we did. And Elgato's announced and Philips has announced and a ton of companies have announced. But it won't be as long as CarPlay takes to get out, but it'll take a while for manufacturers and vendors and everybody to
What's it going to look like? I'll have a unified interface on my iPhone?
No. So there's HealthKit and Health, but there's HomeKit but no Home. There's no Home app. So what Apple's done is developers have to create the ability for you to create homes, rooms, accessories, and actions in every one of their apps. So if you launch the Hue app and it doesn't detect that you have a home set up, it's going to ask you to set up a home and then your rooms and then add your accessories. So the management happens. I'm guessing that's because the manufacturers are more sensitive to Apple taking over their experience than the health providers are. So they have to sort of defer a little bit to them, but you'll be able to do all of that within the app. And then you'll be able to use Siri as an interface. So you can just say, Siri, vacation home, kitchen lights on, and it'll do all that.
I really like that. I hope that that might be a year or two out, right?
They're not quick to adopt new things.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, I think we are going to see a lot of first movers at CES. So there's enough time for them to look at this, to experiment. January, I think CES becomes a huge HomeKit and HealthKit expose.
That makes sense. In fact, CES always has this home automation pavilion where every different standard competes and fights, and it'd be nice to have one unified standard that everybody could support. And maybe it's not, you're still using Zigbee, but this integrates in with HomeKit.
It'll be like CarPlay, where you'll have like the Apple version that works really well, but you'll also be able to use the Google version and then whatever else there is in the industry.
It's a shame Apple doesn't have just 100% monopoly of all mobile devices, because then it would be so much easier.
Horrible.
All of this stuff,
think that
Apple
when
Pay
you're thinking
and
about
HomeKit and HealthKit, it just all work because everybody'd have to do it.
I think that when you're looking at what you're going to do for CES as one of these manufacturers, there's a company that just sold 10 million phones over the weekend. I mean, that and with a watch and with all those other things, I think that those are things that are going to get their attention.
At the same time, that's not going to convince everybody to replace their $45 thermostat with a $200 one. So it's great that this infrastructure is there. My goodness gracious! I think
He's using a new, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, a new Instagram filter. We call it grainy.
No, I'm using the same Barbara Streisand cheesecloth she puts over the lens to give you that dreamy, get rid of the crow's filter. My office is not on fire, I promise you.
If you switch on optical image stabilization,
Good
it looks
heavens.
better.
I'll see you. Is that schmutz on the lens? No, it is not schmutz on the... Okay,
Well, it looks like the gain has been turned up.
Okay, why don't I unplug this and unplug the camera and plug it back in, because it was not doing that before.
Okay.
But I'm just saying it's not like, I think health kit is a bigger deal because right now today, if you have ongoing health issues, or if you're a caretaker for somebody, just drill down into all those menus and all the metrics that you can put in there and organize really well. The health stuff is also, I mean, you just keep this thing in your pocket. It will track your activity. It will track your fitness to a certain extent. So this is something that works today and people can really discover. I think that the HomeKit stuff is more like, we want this to be there so that when over the next 3, 4, 5 years, when people start acquiring things that, unbeknownst to them, their oven actually has HomeKit features. Unbeknownst to them, they have a thermostat that had, when they upgraded their home heating system, it actually had, because it was only $13 more to build this component with HomeKit, they actually added that. That's what I think we're going to look at, where you're just going to realize that, oh, well, if this has that feature, I can just look in this part of my phone in order to make that work.
What do you think of the impact of the Apple Watch with all these health bands? I mean, because I just feel like this has been a big issue for me, where I'm constantly having to choose. I don't have one on right now because I keep on breaking them, but whether it's Fitbit or all these other things, do we think that kind of early on, part of why Nike got out of the business was because they saw what was gonna happen to them? I mean,
it sounds familiar to something that I was talking to at the Amazon event. I was talking to the VP who's in charge of devices, and he was saying that, you know, Amazon's policy is that, you know what, let somebody else get into the problems of keep building new devices and marketing them and maintaining them and doing support for them. That by and large, they're perfect. They will sell their own line of Kindles, but they're perfectly fine if other people are making phones and tablets and other devices that can still access their content. So I feel as though it's the exact same thing. I mean, if I'm taking a guess that if Nike could say that, if you put it to Nike that you can either ask them to continue to make and support the hardware and do nothing with services, or just do nothing but push electrons around and collect all that data, I think they would much rather say, you know what, we are perfectly happy to let other people develop hardware than figure out how to make things not die when you sweat into them.
The nice thing about HealthKit is that, for example, if you have your Apple Watch, but if you forget to charge it, you could throw on a Fitbit, go running, and it'll sync back that information. And as long as you're willing to share read-write, and you could choose granularly read-write permissions, you now have, if your stuff is no longer in a health silo, all this stuff can share data. So you can wear whatever you want, whenever you want, and you never lose out on the central repository of that information.
I feel like at this point, one of the issues is the technology doesn't exist to do much more than measure heart rate and footsteps. I mean, what are you going to wear, a funny hat or a cuff? I mean, you currently, is there technology to do things like blood pressure on a wristwatch? I don't think so. Or
still
VO2 max, or I don't think so. So,
but there's a lot of things.
I mean, we're the cart ahead of the horse here. We got to vet these things first.
But I think that even just those simple things means that, you know, we have those basic things that we're starting to, and I think that was a big thing when you're thinking about, for all those people who have Fitbits or Nike Fuel Bands or thinking about them, you know, the big thing is now that if you take that number and you reduce that from the cost of the watch, the watch seems a lot less expensive if you were thinking about doing both of those things. And I think that combination is a key thing to lowering the overall perceived cost of the watch. And then it does all the other things, like, you know, change the channels on your Apple TV.
Yeah. From my conversations with people in the health tech community, they keep telling me that there's a big line between stuff that works and it's practical so long as you're selling it under prescription and using it under a doctor's supervision. This is the stuff, when you talk about the technology that can actually do blood glucose readings without having to do a stick, that's the sort of stuff we're talking about.
But does it exist?
Something that you can, well, excuse me?
It doesn't exist, does it?
The technology is there. They've got, it's sort of like, imagine if the back of this watch didn't have just LEDs, but also had a grid of sandpaper, so to speak. And it can, seriously, and it's essentially making micro perforations, not so much as to, enough that they can actually get a sample, but not so much that it would actually be a problem. But we're talking about sensors that you would have an ongoing health issue for which having a nonstop stream of data.
Yeah,
because the other issue, and this is something I didn't really think about until it was explained to me in great excitement, that one of the worst things that a doctor wants to hear is that, oh, I bought this new gadget that gives me data on my health every single day, and could you tell me what these numbers mean?
Yeah.
Because it's an extension of the problem where, hi, I've got a sniffle, and now I've done a Google search, and I think I might have this incredibly rare Amazonian-born disease, and now this guy has to say, well, unfortunately, ethically, now I have to test you for this because now you've asked me about this.
Well,
but
and you
it
raise
probably
that.
isn't.
That's an important point, which is the privacy side of this. And now I think we understand a little bit better why Tim Cook has finally pulled the trigger on something I thought for a long time Apple should really focus on, which is privacy. And Apple's marketing message should and it's going to need to be if they're going to do this medical stuff, very clearly be, we are not, because I'm not going to give them my blood pressure if they're going to send it to an insurer. So they have to really be very clear starting today. And Tim Cook has done that with his Charlie Rose interview. They've announced that that it will no longer be possible for law enforcement to send them an iPhone and get them to decrypt it because we don't have the technology. We've changed how it works. This is going to be a bigger and bigger drumbeat from Apple. We're the privacy company. Google and Facebook, not so much. We're the privacy company. We're the privacy company. And that's going to be very important, and it's going to be a huge advantage if they can get people to believe that, because then nobody will trust a Google Health Watch, right?
Well, I think that the really interesting thing there is that Apple has already identified, Tim Cook's identified Google as what he considers their #1 competitor. And by really attacking privacy, what they're really doing is being the anti-Google, saying we don't care about any of your, we don't want your data. And some people don't care, and so that's fine. But I think that they're providing a clear choice for consumers, or what they perceive as a clear choice for consumers.
And it's even more important with this health aspect, right?
Right. That's absolutely.
I don't really care.
And HomeKit. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, there's a lot of
right.
a lot of people got very paranoid when we start seeing Dropcam and Nest being bought by Google. There's a lot of people that concerns.
I'm not really that.
I'm not concerned about it personally. But
yeah, and I don't care if somebody's scanning my searches to give me better advertising. That doesn't have an economic disadvantage. But boy, and maybe a lot of people don't care about that. But boy, with health, they're going to care, right?
Yeah.
Although Dr. Mom points out that your doctor is already sending all of that stuff to your health insurance company as part of the deal with the health insurance company.
But I think a lot of people make choices about what they're going to talk to their doctor about because they're concerned about and I think that this is a little bit less after Obamacare and everything else, assuming that continues, is that I think a lot of the reason people were very sensitive about privacy in the United States was because they were afraid of being turned down for health care.
Because of a pre-existing condition.
And the nice thing about privacy is that the way Apple built it into HealthKit, if you say you're not going to share something, they don't even know it exists. It's not that they get a thing saying this is not shared because they believe even that leaks information. Yeah. They're not even aware of it. So if you say don't share my blood data, it's not, aha, he must have diabetes. It's that blood that doesn't exist. That whole part of HealthKit is not active.
From St. Louis, Missouri, Stephen McGauley, what do we think of the rumor that the 12-inch Retina MacBook Air, which doesn't even exist yet, but is going. So there you go, right there. 12-inch MacBook Air in Retina is going to be thinner, fanless, with smaller bezels. What does that mean for other MacBook Airs? Is that you think of the next MacBook Air?
Who cares about that, Leo? It could be in gold, silver, and space gray. I mean, let's get on the important stuff.
With a fingerprint reader.
I do make it a lot thinner. They can make it a lot thinner if they didn't have a screen on it.
Wow.
I think that's the next
all right, now come on, guys, get serious. Is it first of all? Retina MacBook Air in 12 inches. We have heard the rumor of 12 inches.
Yeah.
I have an 11
What
inch.
does 12 inches mean? I mean, the 11 inch is not really 11 inch. The 13 inch is not really 13 inch. Apple just rounds to those numbers. Right. So.
And Retina on a MacBook Air doesn't seem very likely, or is that?
With Broadwell, it is. Right. Yeah, it's happening with Broadwell.
That will happen because of Broadwell.
True, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
at least they built that.
I mean, there's a lot of applications that we use, I know, on the 11-inch that become very difficult to use because of the limited resolution.
So a little bit more resolution.
Like Yosemite.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, Yosemite, if you're running Yosemite, can you do all the handoff stuff now with iOS 8?
Yep.
You can.
Yeah.
I had a weird experience yesterday. My iPhone rang, and my desktop said, "You're getting a call. Answer decline."
Yeah.
On my desktop in Yosemite because I'm running the beta. But then I hung up on my iPhone and it continued to ring on my desktop for another 30 seconds, which is not good.
It's a little bit delayed, but the cool thing is I have two friends that are married, George and Anthony, and they were both logged in on the same Apple ID, and I would call one and both their phones would ring because the continuity calling can shift between phones too. So if you have old phones, you can make an extension system in your house. Suddenly you could leave them in different rooms and answer your phone no matter where you are. Or if you do have a situation where your partner's in a business and you want to make sure you don't miss a call, all this stuff is going to enable a bunch of different workflows that are going to be really interesting going forward.
I was a little embarrassed. I was on a conference call the other day and my phone rang. And of course, I have it set up through Google Voice. And now with continuity, everything in my office, dozens of things, all started ringing. And I said, I'm sorry, this is like a clock shop at noon. I apologize, but that's because everything's ringing.
I mean, the thing that I love about like, because I do a lot of texting with Hangouts, the big thing I love about Hangouts and the thing I hate about Hangouts is when a Hangout hits my Android phone and my iPad and my computer and my phone all go off. It's very, very difficult. And they all have different buzzers.
Now my Apple stuff's ringing too.
That's happening on this podcast. I think a couple of weeks ago, my phone was ringing. I turned it off in my pocket, and all of a sudden, my MacBook and 2 iPads and another iPhone started ringing in the other room, and I was just desperately hoping no one could hear them.
It's pretty amazing. We are going to have some issues there. By the way, is this new? Because I found that among the ringtones and the alert tones on the iPhone 6, there's a classic section, and you can go back and get the previous ringtones. I am gonna set all my ringtones to the original marimba ringtone.
Oh, good.
It's
not
so
new,
retro.
but it's so good.
I love that.
Also, you kind of get yourself programmed in a Pavlovian way to respond.
Yeah.
I used the 6 Plus as my alarm clock this morning, and usually I use my Android phone for that. But even though it had been about like 8 months to a year since the last time I'd used an iPhone for that, I could not use the same ringtone as I used for 2 years or 5 years before that, because I'm just Pavlovianly programmed to respond to that. Oh, gotta wake up.
Do you use chimes? Which one do you use?
I use the digital one.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, well, because it's annoying enough that I won't just say, you know what, I can put up with this for 30 seconds if it means that I don't have to get out of bed. This one is
the submarine one, the auga.
Doesn't this bring back memories?
Yeah.
And when you see that on a TV show, you go, oh, that's old. All my phones are going to ring like that.
That's the Wilhelm stream of TV ringtones.
I love that.
That's robot, right?
I didn't do that. Okay. Should we be, Sean Kennedy asks, a bit more concerned that SwiftKey and other keyboards use server-side processing and can store everything you type on their servers? This would be a treasure trove to any hacker. So this is a question that's coming up a lot now.
There's a lot of confusion, and it's really sad because a SwiftKey and a lot of those keyboards are bound by some of the decisions that Apple made in the architecture. If you look at how easy widgets are to install, the keyboards are nowhere near as easily to install. You have to go into the keyboard section. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of space inside the extension. So if you have a really big app, like SwiftKey has a ton of smarts behind it, and they can't fit that into the extension. So that has to live in the app. And that means that you have to enable full access so the extension can talk back to the app and then send the information back to the extension. That isn't server-side at all, but because of the way it's labeled, it's very confusing. What am I giving full access to? They have a secondary service that lets you sync with Google Plus or with Facebook. If, for example, I have a Nexus 7, a Nexus 5, an iPhone, an iPad. If I want to sync that intelligence between all my devices, I can enable that, but that takes a secondary action inside the app. So I think it's perfectly safe right now. There's a lot of confusion about it, but people should realize that if they do put their stuff on servers, then they are subject to all the benefits and liabilities of having stuff that lives on the cloud.
So, and this is why I would trust something like SwiftKey. I would not necessarily trust an app that I'd never heard of, no matter how brilliant it is.
So this is what I tell people, because this has come up because Apple, of course, puts a massive warning when you turn on these third-party keyboards, which, by the way, Google also does in Android, saying this keyboard can gather everything you type and send it back to their servers. You have to agree, okay, I'm going to do that. And that's scaring the pants off people. But what I tell them is, well, it's now explicit, but it's always been going on. Don't you think that any program running on your computer at all can do anything it wants, including send every keystroke back? Absolutely. So you're trusting every program on your laptop or computer,
right? Just
because desktop software has never warned you.
Do we think that on your computer? Absolutely.
Well, but I'm just saying you're already doing that all the time on any computer.
We should also point out.
B, every bit of software running on any device has this risk. There's a trust factor in using. In fact, there's a trust factor in civilization.
Now, does Apple do one thing we don't know? I don't know is whether Apple is doing any kind of that's part of their for App Store, either on the computer or on the iPhone, whether that kind of communication back and forth is considered allowed.
So they have to declare it.
Yeah, it's an intent in the Android world. I don't know what they call it in the Apple world.
Well, yeah, so they have to make, like, they can run without any supervision if they are only local. If they want to do anything with the cloud, they have to declare it to you. More importantly, though, Apple has taken what some people find annoying measures, but what they consider safe measures. For example, third-party keyboards get deactivated in a password field. It defaults back to the iOS keyboard. On the phone pad, because that has to be secure carrier communications, third-party keyboards can't act. There's a series of what's considered high security elements that the third-party keyboard just has absolutely no access to, and is typically security involved. So even if you are worried about it, when you go to put in something that is incredibly sensitive information, that keyboard just doesn't have access anywhere.
Well, and actually, that's something that drives me crazy, because Apple, because of their paranoia, switches back to the crap Apple keyboard whenever I'm entering a password, which is the time I most want SwiftKey, because it has lowercase keycaps. And so, I think Apple's implementation, and this is where the paranoia, I understand paranoia, and if Apple's going to be the privacy company, then they have to do all of this. And it's why I probably am not going to end up using iOS, because this paranoia means that you live in this kind of weird world where not everything you want to do can be done. I think you have to decide, do I trust SwiftKey? I do, and I have for a long time on Android. If you don't, then you should continue to use the Apple keyboard and understand that you're trusting Apple. And that's that's the way it is in the real world. And on desktop OS, any program running on a desktop OS can do that.
I mean, but I guess one question is do we think that passwords, the way that we think of them, as we start to see the Touch ID and other things related to that, do we think that we're going to continue to use them 5 years from now, or 10 years, maybe 5 years, but maybe 10 years from now, I think that almost everything will be biometric, because it's just a lot more efficient. Like it wasn't, the technology wasn't there to do it before, but I think that at this point we're really getting to a point where that technology is going to continue to go. If you look at the kind of what Apple's able to do just with your iPhoto, images, that mixed with your all the things that have been used in security for quite some time. It seems like those are the kind of things that we're going to start seeing added to a lot of these things to just make it actually easier.
Am I wrong? Somebody in the chat room says, oh, no, you can switch it so that you don't have to use the Apple keyboard during password entry.
No, as far as I know, that's totally locked down.
Locked down. You have no choice.
It forces you back into the Apple keyboard for passwords.
Yes.
I mean, if it's using the proper if it's using an iOS proper password field, if they have a fake, custom-made password.
It doesn't always do it, but it does, when it's an official password field, it does.
And I think when you're locked, if you've never entered your credentials, you can't access a third-party keyboard either, which is why some people don't see it on the lock screen if they haven't logged in yet.
Yeah. Having said that, I would say Apple is correct to do this. This is the right path for Apple. They should make themselves the privacy company, the safe company, and those people who are paranoid will then flock to Apple, because and the people who want more capability and functionality will leave Apple. But that's that will be a very clear choice.
And always been the case.
Yeah, that's always been something. It's privacy in 2014 is what security was 10 years ago for them, where they could simply they could really put that in the ad and say, well, there are no viruses, there's no malware, it's always, and then eventually, okay, there is some, so they can't make that message again. But privacy really is something they have control over. The only caveat to that is that always make sure you know that there is nothing really preventing them from going back on that on a case-by-case basis. So it's possible that there will be a tool that they release in the future where at some level they'll decide that it's just too valuable to us to look at this data as it's coming in, even if it's only to make sure that this device is running properly. And it's not as though Apple's going to say, oh, by the way, we decided to anonymously collect performance information from people who are using an iPhone in this particular situation. But there is the fact remains that there is no company that I would trust with that kind of information of that scale more than Apple.
Yeah. One of the cool new things in iOS 8 is you can choose to share your diagnostic information with Apple and with developers. But then if you go into the diagnostic section, it lists every report and what it's sending back. Like, for example, if an app was jettisoned because it ran out of memory, there's a jettison report for it in that section. So you have a lot of transparency into it now.
I'm a little bit worried that they're being a little bit too verbose, because over the past weekend I've gotten so many. Do you know that this app still has the ability to do this? Do you want it to continue to do that? I'm saying, and my initial thought is, well, you you wouldn't be warning me about this unless this was a bad thing that the app should not be doing. So maybe I should turn that off. So I really,
it's my understanding that it's only going to do that, I hope, once per app, right? But
it's for the settings. Like you have the location settings have changed. It used to be always and never.
So here's the deal. No, wait a minute. This is what's happening to me, Rene, and I think it's happening to Andy. I give it approval to have location settings. It says, you want to allow that? I say yes. Then at some time, a couple of days later, it says, it's still doing this. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
And I am hoping that if I say allow the second time, it will stop nannying me. Because I cannot use my phone at this point without a pop-up every minute or so. It's driving me up the wall.
I go through, I have to admit, I turn both on my computer and my phones. I go in and turn most of the notifications off.
You can't turn that one off, unfortunately.
If you choose always, like if you choose just an app, it's only going to allow location in the app and it shouldn't bother you again. If you choose always, that location can persist. And when it thinks the app is using it outside of its normal function, like for example, even its own app, like the Apple Store app, if you've left the Apple Store for 3 or 4 hours and it's still using your location, it's going to pop up that warning and say, are you really sure this should still be using it? And part of that is battery life because, people complain all the time and location is one of the biggest battery drains. And part of that is just it wants you to know that an app is using your location when it doesn't think it needs it anymore.
So I want to be clear. This is a good thing for Apple to do, but then the user is going to have to make the choice. Do I want to live in this world or a world where anything goes and I don't get all these annoying alerts? I hope Google doesn't start doing this too. I fear that they will, and then it's a
big problem though because a lot of people just get dialogue fatigue. Like you see, can I use your contacts, your camera? Can I use your Twitter? Can I use? And people just start pressing the button and they don't read anymore. I mean, Apple has privacy sheets now. If you go into settings and into the app, it shows you all the permissions.
Right.
And I would much rather that sheet come up the first time and let me look at it than have pop-up after pop-up that I get frustrated and blast through.
Yeah, that should be sufficient, I think. We're going to wrap things up here pretty quick. Before do you want to take a few more questions? I'm not sure where we stand here. Apple TV, Health Kit. We already answered, I think, a lot of this
Should we talk about the bent phones?
Yeah, there's this rumor or story going around that these phones, the big ones, are bending.
Yeah, the people who are just putting their pocket and sitting down, and then they
don't sit on it.
They don't. Well, and so they come home and they put it on the table and notice that it's now it's like Pringles shaped a little bit, and it still works. It's fine. It's like they should try to sell it on eBay as a prototype curved screen, rumored device. So I'm sure that if they take it back to Apple to the Genius Bar. People in Cupertino will be very interested to find out, okay, how the hell did that happen and how can we prevent that from happening in the future?
My understanding is this is, and we covered it, because if you know basics of physics and materials, this is aluminum and it's large, and if you put sufficient force on it, it's going to bend, and if you put even more force on it, it's going to break, and if you sit on it with a round backside on a flat thing, it's going to start taking the shape of that round backside. And there's unfortunately nothing Apple can do to change the laws of physics, but what they can do is educate people and say maybe it's not a good idea to put this 5.5-inch phone in your jean pocket and then sit on it for 6-7 hours.
Or maybe they can look at this data and say, okay, maybe there's a cost to making this as thin as possible because if we put a thick steel frame around it, that didn't happen before. Actually, that had happened, I think, with a couple of 5s and 5Ss. But there's things that don't happen with other phone designs. That is a funny fault for a phone. I mean, the Wi-Fi issue is driving me up the wall with iOS 8, but that would be a funny fault that I have a curved phone now. Isn't that interesting?
You know what that'll go for on eBay? Outrageous amounts.
If it goes that far without breaking it, you could see someone organizing themselves around that. Building a nice little form.
Any other issues that we want to address here?
There's some, like the Wi-Fi issue Andy mentioned. Whenever Apple updates, for some reason, Wi-Fi is always a problem for some people. It's almost like the butterfly effect now, where the software is so complicated that you have infinite variety and infinite situations of different errors for people. So I'm sure Andy's getting the same thing. People will tweet me saying, have you heard a lot of people saying this? No, only you, but it is a really bad problem for you. And we set up like 5 or 6 phones, and they're all different. They all have different bugs.
I had a problem like that, and I was very relieved that John Gruber has it too. So now I don't look like I'm just being a pissant.
I think inside Cupertino there's a little rule of thumb saying that we're not the OS can't possibly be finished yet until something breaks Wi-Fi. Then we know that we put enough complexity and new features in.
I was trying to use I come back to iOS after a couple of years away. And one of the things they changed is if you have iTunes Match turned on the phone, you can no longer sync music over USB, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure I fully understand.
You don't really do that anymore.
Well, right. It's very old-fashioned, right? Because
I've heard of this thing.
iTunes
I use
Match.
Spotify.
So what we do is
I actually don't use iTunes.
Oh, you don't use it?
I have
Okay.
Spotify. I was like,
so I'm going on an airplane. My bags are packed. I'm ready to go. I want to have a bunch of classical music to sleep by on my iPhone. So I have a nice playlist that I like, about 900 songs. So I can't sync it. So I go, well, that's no problem because iTunes Match, I can just download it.
Mm-hmm.
Except no, apparently about half of them downloaded the rest. And so for the rest of the day, I was getting messages, can't download that, can't download that, can't download that. And even though these were purchased on the iTunes store, they're legit, blah, blah, blah. It's just a flaw. And apparently it's a long-standing flaw in the iTunes Match.
Nothing in my iTunes library was able to sync back down. The stuff I purchased from the iTunes store, no good. Stuff that's synced through iTunes
you had it
Match,
too.
no good. Yeah, and that's particularly galling because the first thing I did, because I have so much music purchased through the Amazon MP3 store, was download the Amazon MP3 app, sign in, say, please download every single thing I've ever purchased in 5 years to this device. And 45 minutes to an hour later, I had 1,500 to 1,000, 2,000 songs on this device. It was that easy.
It was nice.
And that's not Apple. That's Amazon. They don't work for Apple. And how can they make this work and Apple can't?
Well, and the other problem I was having is I couldn't stop. There's no cancel. You can go one by one, but you can't cancel the whole 900.
Oh, yeah. Dave
songs.
Wiskus, who's John Gruber's partner, posted a solution maybe for him, but everyone can benefit. You uncheck sync music, delete all your music, and then recheck sync music, and that's helped a lot of people.
Uncheck sync music.
Yeah, in iTunes, and then delete music, general usage, manage storage, just delete the music.
And then just start over,
recheck
in other
sync
words.
music, yeah. So
Well, it's all
basically,
right, because what I ended up doing is wiping this phone, restoring from backup, and trying and then doing it via USB, which is what I'd wanted to do in the first place. So my tip to everybody is, I know it's old-fashioned, but sync, you get your Match stuff on your desktop and then sync over USB if you're moving more than a few songs over.
I find that my
Nostalgia,
Spotify subscription works great.
Yeah, maybe that's Apple's
just say
point of
just
view.
make local.
Is, well, screw it, guys. You shouldn't be doing that anyway. It just seems like this is something that should work. It's been a couple of years apparently, which I was surprised to find out.
It says for some people, so been all these problems like the Wi-Fi.
It's
thing
not
affects
everybody.
and it's hard.
Yeah, it was about 50-50 on Twitter. About half the people said, well, that never happens to me. It works just fine. And then about half the people said, I know. Isn't that awful?
And I don't want to make excuses because this is where people start calling us apologists, and sometimes rightly so. But I think there's some sort of rose-colored glasses because everyone says, this version of iOS is the buggiest one ever. But I go back and I look at the articles I wrote a year ago and 2 years ago, and there's like massive amounts of resprings or incredible battery drain. And it's
Right,
every
remember that?
zero.
Yeah.
Every X.0 is bad, and it's particularly bad because you came from 7.1.3, which fixed a ton of problems, and they're working on fixing a ton of problems too, and they're prioritizing them. And
well, let me point out though, this is not an iOS 8 problem. This has been a problem for 2 years, right? This is a long-standing problem that Apple's never fixed.
And VoiceOver, I think, is broken now too, which is affecting a lot of accessibility people, and they've got to fix that as well.
I think what happens with Apple, look, all technology breaks. It all does. Everybody. And Apple gets a free pass a lot because people love it so much. They find workarounds. I found a workaround. Yeah. So they put up with it, and it doesn't get fixed.
Well, but in broad strokes, I agree with Rene. I mean, especially when you have such a major update such as iOS 8, I will give Microsoft, I will give Google, I will give Apple a month to solve any of the deal killers that happen once they ship something, 2 months to eliminate the bugs that are annoying and don't affect everybody.
Right.
It's only when we get into the 90-day mark when I say, okay, you're no longer allowed to get the name brand cereal in the cafeteria. You get the generic brand Cheerios from Costco until you fix this because you need to be punished somehow. This is not acceptable.
Another one that will probably be fixed. Plants vs. Zombies doesn't work on any of the iPhones we've tried, and we've tried quite a few of them.
Now we're getting serious. I mean, the whole match thing is not that important. But I'm not upgrading until I know that Plants vs.
PVZ's got to work. Well, I think it's because, and this was a little puzzlement to me, that Apple's only giving a gigabyte of RAM to this phone. Yeah. That's one thing I thought maybe was a little under-spec'd, but maybe iOS doesn't need it.
Yeah, I mean, we should really start playing with this over extended period. It's always nicer to know that this has more application memory than less, but then you have to. It's sort of like complaining that this doesn't have the CPU is only 50% faster in terms of actual clock rate. Then let's actually play with it. I haven't actually seen any problems with it over the past 4 or 5 days, and I've only had 2 or 3 hours in which I was trying to really make it cry. But I want to word process this. I want to be streaming music off of this, and I want to be downloading something in the background. And it was still working fine. So I guess they're just limits to what a phone, what a human can expect a phone to do. You would actually pull out your own hair and tire yourself out trying to run apps on a small phone.
I just want my Safari tabs to stay around longer. That's the only thing that the RAM limitation is still killing me on, is almost one Safari tab every time will reload.
Since day one, it's the most frustrating thing because, hey, I need, what's the street address for this place? Oh, I have the map on Safari. Oh, there it is in Safari. No, don't reload it.
Yes.
Are you trying to make, do you just not like me? You showed it to me just long enough to take it away from me again. You are not on my side. For an easily throwable device, that's a very interesting position to take, phone.
The frustrating thing is if 1.3 megabytes of RAM would work perfectly, Apple's like has to put in 2 megabytes, and then how much power does that drain every time they light up 2 mega? Yeah. So it's all this crazy science to get these things to work. And I understand that messing with the ingredients messes with the recipe, but I would really like to have 4 or 5 Safari tabs open. Crazy 6 tabs open. Let me have that.
You think it's a RAM issue?
Yeah, I think they're just not or they're being incredibly aggressive and not caching them. I mean, whatever it is, it's reloading my tabs every time.
Camera roll's gone, but that's fine. You got recent pictures. That's the camera roll, right? Except somebody was saying that the EXIF information is no longer preserved.
It's confused people because if you're used to for years having a camera roll and you go there and it's gone, and Apple never explains anything. So that's something has changed. Someone's come onto your phone and changed something. And that's always distressing. Recent photos is not quite camera roll because it only holds a certain amount of photos, and camera roll used to hold all of them, albeit it would put screenshots and downloads and everything together. So now you still have your collections and years and moments.
To be clear, every picture you take is still on the phone.
Yes,
it's not where you thought it was.
It's not where it used to be. Yeah.
So it's not like
again, that stresses people. That's a legitimate stressor for some people.
Yeah, it bothers people.
I'm sorry. This is just to interrupt. This is exactly what you're talking about. Waze has been using your location in the background. Do you want to continue doing this?
Yeah. You'll so my hope is it's only going to do that once.
And it is a pop-up. It's not a notification. It's a pop-up. So this is what I was doing, but now I'm interrupted to make this.
Exactly.
Okay.
I've been getting those all day, and it's driving me nuts. But I presume that once I get through all 159 of my applications, it will stop doing that.
The other thing that's been confusing people is the battery usage, because you've got battery shaming like you do in Yosemite, but it's confusing for some people because you go there and you'll see, for example, Tweetbot is using 40% of your energy, and you've got to think, is it because I'm always tweeting? If it is, then that's perfectly normal. But if Google Hangouts is using 40% of your energy and you haven't launched it in 4 days, that's not normal, and you might want to kill that.
Well, in some ways, do we think that Apple is subtly pressing on the developers? If that keeps on coming up, like if I had Waze and it kept on doing that all the time, I would be tempted as a user to get rid of it because it's just if I can't turn it off. And it may be a way to hint to the developers that they need to be more austere about how they're using the phone.
I heard a story that when some of the developers saw the battery shaming some other technology, like, haha, that's very funny, putting that in the beta. They're like, no, we're shipping this. Like, what do you mean? You can't ship that. I'm going to have tons of customer complaints. And Apple's position is people complain to Apple about battery life and they'll take it. But if you're making a bad app, they would prefer the customers complain directly to you.
There remains, I think this is a hole that's been around for a long time, but you should know about it, the Siri lock screen issue, where you can actually go up to somebody's phone locked and launch Siri and say, send a Facebook message, I'm not wearing any pants right now, and it will go on their Facebook stream without any further permissions. If you don't want that to happen, I don't feel like it's a bug. I feel like it's a feature.
It's a feature. Yeah.
But it's a feature to be able to walk up and
it's a convenience. And with the new Hey Siri, with the new, I can't, I'm sorry, I apologize.
It's not plugged in. You can do it, Leo.
To me, but everybody watching, their iPhone just woke up.
It's fine.
If it's plugged in and you do HS, that you could do it without touching anything. So in theory, I could right now say HS, send a Facebook message. I'm not wearing any pants right now.
Everyone, just hold up your phone and
wait. You have to wait a bit because it says, "Do you want me to send the message? I'm not wearing any pants right now." and you say yes, and then like thousands of people's Facebook will have that message. I haven't tried it yet because I'm afraid.
We should do it on the show.
I haven't tried it on the iPhone 6, but on the iPhone 5S, you could set it up so that you had to have Touch ID to make Siri work on the lock screen, and that way, if some random, if a rando puts their finger on it, nothing happens.
So that's my message, which is if this bothers you or you're worried about this, you absolutely must go into your settings in the passcode settings and disable Siri. But I don't think Apple considers that a bug. I think they consider it a feature. Now here is a video that Effin Dunn sent us of President Obama triggering his iPhone. Watch this.
To counter its hateful ideology and to stop the flow of fighters into and out of the region. Last night, we also took strikes to disrupt plotting against the United States and our allies by seasoned al-Qaeda operatives in Syria who are known as the Khorasan Group.
Apparently, Syria and Siri are close enough a match. It's launched Siri.
Here's all I got to say is that we just hope that there's no government programs in there that could be activated with Siri where you go, hey, Siri, please launch the Iowa nukes.
But you see the problem. If a lot of people are sitting watching us with their iPhones plugged in, I could probably prank them, right?
Well, I think I just tried, but I don't know if it worked.
We had that where someone yelled, hey, seriously, on a podcast, and then a bunch of people complained.
Yeah, launch the nukes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am the president. Bye-bye. And I mean, bye-bye. All right, we're going to take a break, come back, and have your picks of the week. I think we've got a bunch of good stuff. Before I do that, this is such a big show. There's so much to talk about, and we've just touched the surface. Beats, there's some debate. TechCrunch says the Beats streaming service will be disbanded, that Apple will absorb it somehow into its own iRadio service. Apple's kind of denying this. Recode said that the Apple spokesperson said, no, that's not the case. And yet, I have to say that TechCrunch had 5 people say this, 5 unnamed sources. Seems like a pretty sure thing. And it's kind of how Apple would operate. Any thoughts on that?
2 brands are too many.
One too many, yep.
Well, I think the other thing is that the Beats headphones have a lot of brand recognition, but the Beats service is not.
It was a flop because it came too late. It's cool and it's great, but it's just not Apple. And so they need to rebrand.
I think they may use it for something, but I don't think. But I don't think there's no reason to keep that brand.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that they put the Beats app on the demo phones during the launch event.
But not on the actual phones.
Yeah, not on the actual phones. That made me wonder if there was actually going to be shipping with the Beats app on it.
Yeah, I thought maybe. And I think the fact that it wasn't is telling. Why not?
On AT&T in America.
Yeah. Well, you don't care, right? It's not available.
No. We get nothing.
You get nothing, and we got nothing. So we're equal. Anything else? Last minute chance to get any
so much, Leo.
I know.
We need a bigger show.
There are people talking about the iCloud.
Yeah. Gruber says
issue.
that the Apple Watch edition will be $6,000.
It's solid gold. Solid 18-karat gold.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you buy a watch for $6,000 that's obsolete in a year?
I mean, Leo, there are so many engineers that have no time and a lot of money.
Right. There's people who spend $6,000 on a single airplane flight.
Yeah.
Well, that's
my question. See, my question is that so that you are the sort of executive who can afford to have a $6,000 solid gold watch, and you buy the $6,000 solid gold watch because you have a unique $6,000 solid gold watch. How will it make you feel when you walk, out to the outer office, pass by one of your assistants who has a $350 sports version of the exact same watch that you have that doesn't do anything that your watch doesn't do?
And it will make me feel superior.
Yeah, but the thing is that when you
the same Coca-Cola as you too.
When you buy a Rolex, I mean, it does exactly the same thing as everybody else's watch. In fact, sometimes it doesn't do it as well.
You can talk about the centuries of tradition of watchmaking and how this is a special escapement, and look how the sweep hand is how much work had to go to make sure it doesn't have to go click, 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 click. It's a timepiece, but it's a special timepiece. If you block out the fact that all this is the same watch in a different metal. So unless they decide they're going to come up with a brand new design to make it a little bit more flashy, to really point out that, hey, look, I didn't just spend $4,750 more on this $4,650 more on this for absolutely nothing. I actually, look, it has a inscribed line and a special color red on the bezel. There you go.
Oh,
he's
got
gold.
That's so cute. I have an edition.
If anybody buys an edition, it'll be me. But and you made it. I mean, I know I'm a sucker for this crap.
I was lining up for the edition.
How about the line of people who will have $6,000 in cash in their pockets at 2 a.m. in Soho?
Oh man, what do you think? You think that'll happen?
Sure.
I don't know. I don't. All I know is I hope they've got police there.
Shanghai
And those
billionaires
police
need
aren't
their
on
gold
the
watches
take
too.
because-
In a weird kind of confluence of prepaid advertising, Joan Rivers has posted from the grave that she bought an iPhone 6. Apparently, on her Instagram and Facebook feed, apparently this was just purchased earlier and scheduled. They were quickly taken down, so don't go looking for them. I just did. She tweets or Facebooks, "This badass is being replaced by an iPhone 6, not the fat one." Wow. All right, we'll take a break. Come back. Your picks of the week, gentlemen. I got one you'll never believe. But first, a word from LegalZoom.com. LegalZoom is not a law firm. Not a law firm. Whose birdie is that?
I'm sorry, that's mine.
No, I like it. I'm just curious.
It's the Moto X, and I had a Twitter client on it that I keep meaning to turn off.
But I like it when Twitter tweets.
It's like I have a friend in the house for the first time in many months.
My little bird on my phone. Our show today brought to you by LegalZoom.com. Not a law firm, something so much better. They provide self-help services at your specific direction. So much of what we do can be done on LegalZoom.com for a lot less than an actual, going out to an actual law firm. They've been doing this for 13 years, helping Americans get personalized wills, powers of attorney, living trusts, LLCs, S corporations, and more. Actually, Lisa's not here. Lisa's doing her will right now. They send you a beautiful binder, all the materials you need, all the paperwork. I was so impressed. So impressed. It's just fabulous. The company was started by some of the best legal minds in the country. They make it painless for you to get the legal protection you need. And if you go to LegalZoom.com, you'll see the very wide range of business and personal legal documents you can do. And they make it so easy. If you don't have a last will and testament, maybe you've been putting it off because you don't, it's a lot. You could do this literally in an hour, less than an hour. And it starts at $69. If you need support from an attorney, they have a pre-negotiated flat rate legal plan with attorneys in your state. So you can get information from an attorney through independent attorneys and self-help services at your direction, of course. They're not a law firm. I think they're just exactly what you need for so many things. Start your business, protect your family, or your pets. They have a pet protection agreement, which I think is a great thing. Andy, you might want to do that for your bird and your phone. What's going to happen to that bird if you pass? You ever think of that? Get legal help from LegalZoom.com, and when you use the offer code MBW, you'll get $10 off at checkout. LegalZoom.com. Not a law firm. They provide self-help services at your specific direction. We thank them so much for their support at LegalZoom.com. Yeah, I just got a email. My Moto X with the cognac leather back is arriving tomorrow.
Oh, that's nice. I've got the leather back.
There you
go.
go.
Boy, is it nice.
Does it feel like it's like a fine wallet in your pocket? No, I.
It's like it smells like the wallet that my grandmother used to give me for Christmas every other year.
I love it.
And it over the past 3 weeks, it's not pristine anymore, but it's acquired a nice little amount of
you want
character.
a patina? Yeah.
It's nice. It's a nice, and that's just one of like a million different treatments you can have on this phone. It's awfully nice.
This makes me ask you the question, Andy. You very famously, about a year and a half ago, abandoned the iPhone for Android. Are you going back with the iPhone 6? Have you decided yet?
Haven't decided yet. I have the luxury, of course, of being able to live with an iPhone 6 and an iPhone 6 Plus for a while without actually having to buy one. I love these two new phones. I will say this. If I had known 2 years ago that Apple was definitely going to be coming out with not one but two larger size phones, and that they'd be creating an update to the operating system that allows applications to talk to each other more efficiently and even swap out keyboards, I might have held out for another couple years to see what happened, but the fact of the matter is I'm really happy with Android, so I'm really going to have to give that a lot of thought. I will tell you that for the first time since I made that switch, boy, is it tempting, and maybe I will be using iOS in about 5 or 6 months' time.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge for me as well.
Great time to be using any kind of phone, but what a great time to be using an iPhone. So I'm legitimately, totally, sincerely excited about this. What a great time for Apple.
My attitude towards this is it's now officially a tie. That you can get, that it's really a personal choice what you feel you want. If you want a bigger screen, you can get it. If you want third-party cookie, it is now a tie. There's no reason. There's differences in both ways. I mean, iMessages, the ability to send audio messages is so sweet, so easy. The ability to accidentally send naked selfies, also sweet and easy.
Thanks for those, Leo.
There are differences, obviously, but now you have a very, very good range of choices, and that's great. We're in a mature industry where there's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like Apple had some catching up to do and absolutely did it. And boy, nobody makes a better hardware. I mean,
as a physical object, there's nothing more pleasant than an iPhone. Absolutely.
Me want to put it in my pants.
An object.
And we have a show title.
Andy Ihnatko. What is your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is an oldie but a goodie, Goodreader for iOS. This is an amazing app with a somewhat clunky interface. It's not the slickest, nicest like Web 5.18.0 iOS 8 style interface. But what it is its job is twofold: to allow you to take any file you have on any computer, anywhere on your network or anywhere in the cloud, and put it onto your iPhone. And then the second thing is any document, any file of any kind, to let you read and or play that file. So there's iTunes is a concept by which we measure our pain on some days, and so I have to admit that to get like comic book files, to get movie files, to get documents onto the iPhone, it's as easy as just simply, I'm afraid I don't have this set up for Crane Cam 3000, the future of video podcasting, to give you a demonstration. And I know we're running a little bit late, but you just simply say, look for places where you can get files off of my network, and it found every single machine that has file sharing. It found my NAS. It's found everything. Navigate through all the structure for once you've logged in and credentialed yourself, and just basically take any file that's on there and bring it onto this device. You can either use it for really, really easy, just point to point. I've got a file that's on this MacBook or on this Windows notebook. I want to move it from here to there. Just enable that feature here, and now this basically becomes its own Wi-Fi file server, and you can copy that file from here to there. This is still the one serious fundamental pain point for me with iOS devices. It is so difficult to get a file from over here to over here, and if you have a Goodreader on the device, you are 95% of the way towards a solution to that. It's just, I've tried so many other file managers for iOS. None of them are as magical almost as Goodreader, where it is truly tap this one button. If it is available for sharing anywhere on your home network or on any of your cloud servers, it can get it for you. And right now it's on sale for $2.99. I don't know how long that sale has been going on, or if it's one of those things where we'll just keep it on sale for $2.99 until we can afford that Tesla that we've been having our eyes on. But the fact of the matter is, it is on discount for $2.99 and worth every damn penny. An iPhone is almost not a complete phone for me until I have Goodreader on it. And this is, I really wish that Apple should just write a huge check, buy this product, and call it the Finder, and ship it on every single iPhone that exists.
Well, I have to try it again because, of course, I used it when the iPad first came out and used it for a long time. I just have, and it's probably still on my iPad. So
it's really grown. I tend to re-update it every 5 or 6 months, and every 5 or 6 months, I used the first version. I thought, oh, gee, this is really doesn't look very good. Only does a couple of things. But then the year after that, wow, they made it 50% as good as it is right now. And then a year after that, it became kind of in the form it is right now, and it became absolutely essential. It would be nice if they hired someone to give the user interface a bit of a polish, because it is rather literal, so to speak. It is like the first is the first design that you put off the whiteboard to say, let's just make sure all the features work, and then once we've got this locked down, then we'll redesign the interface. And they never got around to redesigning the interface. But I don't care. I would much rather have an app that's as functional as this and make it a little bit of a mutt as far as interface goes, and have the most beautiful interface in the world and say, well, it only does one thing. It gets things off of Microsoft Cloud Drive, but boy, the interface, isn't it beautiful? Yeah, I actually wanted to be able to get my comic files off of but look how easily it connects to Microsoft. Yeah, but I don't use Microsoft. You don't understand design. Shut up.
Shut up. Rene, Ritchie, your pick of the week.
I have two. I originally was going to go with 1Password, but then I saw it in the show notes, so I deferred.
Well, we didn't do it, so you should still mention it. Yeah.
So one is 1Password, which I've been using for years, and their iOS 8 update is great because they've done two things. One is they've used the custom action extension so that anything that has a share button in it. So if you're on a website and you want to fill in a password, if you're in an app and you want to fill in a password, as long as it can access a share sheet, you can use the 1Password action to enter your master password and quickly fill that in. So your excuses for having weak passwords are gone.
LastPass doesn't do that yet. That's nice.
It's great. Now, they can't do Touch ID at the same time because they can't keep the credentials resident in memory yet in the action extension. But you've been typing in your master password for a long time anyway, so you can probably do it.
So if you want to have one that does do Touch ID, LastPass does that, but doesn't have the share sheets. So
it does Touch ID. So I just want to in the 1Password app, you can use Touch ID to access that now. You no longer need your master password. It's just that Apple doesn't, as far as my understanding is, Apple doesn't let you keep stuff in memory. So they can't get your master password authorized with Touch ID, then store that and let you keep accessing it with Touch ID in the share sheet. So you still have to put in your password every time. There's no way to cache that.
I get it.
Yeah. So, but it's still much better than having to go to the app, copy your password, go back to the app, paste it in. From anywhere, you can, again, anywhere with a share button, you can just use 1Password to populate your password and username. The 1Password app itself, Touch ID now, you can set it to not ask you for your master password for 30 days if you want. Good. And unless you reboot, it won't ask you for it again. Anytime you go there, it's just Touch ID and you're straight in. Super convenient. And I've been using it again on Mac, on iOS, on my iPad, everywhere. I install Dropbox and I install 1Password, then I install everything else. It's just super convenient. The other one is Storehouse. And Storehouse is made by Mark Quano, who used to be Apple's user experience evangelist. And it was on the iPad for a long time, and it's a fabulous iPad app. And he's brought it to the iPhone too. And he sort of made the same realization that Clayton Morris did with Quick Read, is that you think that people want a big iPad experience all the time, but sometimes they just want to do things really quickly while they're on the go. And now with this version of Storehouse, you can take a few pictures and within seconds, you can make a visual story and share it. And the editor is sublime. It's not just good, it's fantastic. It quickly arranges stuff for you automatically. So if you have no time at all, you can just get that story done and post it and be on your way. But if you have time, you can edit things. You can change the layout. You can add text. I put a couple sample stories. One of the ones that I did for the iPhone in there, and that took me all of about 2 minutes. I had the photographs in my camera roll. I added 2 lines of text. I rearranged a couple things, and I shared it. And
this is nice.
Ridiculous. I know Sarah picked it previously on iPad today, but now it's brand new on the iPhone. And again, these are D800 shots that a friend of mine happened to have in her camera roll. But you can get photos right off your iPhone, and especially now with the manual camera controls, you can do some phenomenal things.
I'm going to put this on here for my trip to London. I think this would be great for travel, right?
It is. It's so quick, and you can share it to Twitter. You can share it to Facebook. People can go right to the website to see it in that beautiful sort of layout. And I like writing. I love writing. I do it for a living. But I was trained as a designer and an artist, and the ability to tell a visual story is just incredibly appealing to me.
Storehouse.
It does video too. So if you want to have your title shot be, a slow wind through the trees or something, you can do all that too.
How much is it?
It's free.
How can that be?
1Password is free now too.
I know. Freemium, $10 for the Pro version.
Yeah.
I presume Storehouse is freemium as well.
No, Storehouse right now it's free, and I think a lot of social apps have to do that just to get a network effect. I don't know that you can launch a social app anymore with any sort of upfront charge.
This is like Medium for pictures. It's really nice.
It really is.
Yeah. I'm installing it right now on both my phones. Awesome.
And the only thing better than looking at it is actually it's like finger painting with a visual story the way that the editor works.
Storehouse. Alex, Lindsay, do you have... Oh, good. I'm glad you're going to do that. Because I want to do something different, and if nobody did it, I was going to do it.
It's brand new, and it's something that Aaron Mailer, I don't know if he sent you something, but
he just sent me a message.
Yeah. And so
we're talking about Taco.
Yes, Taco. And it's...
Talko, not TACO.
how did they get that name? That's all I'm saying. You know, it's hard to get good names. I worry about this. So I'm still getting my head around it, to be honest with you. So it's something that is brand new, and what it really does is let you use your voice, you know, in a lot of different ways. So whether you're calling someone, you can share audio connected to a photo. You can, you know, connect to other things to do, and allows teams to. We're just starting to play with it, figuring out. You know, today we've been kind of knocking around on it. So I can't say that I know it really well yet. We just started playing with it. It
Well,
looks
it came
like
out
it's really
last
cool.
night, last night.
right.
Ray Ozzie, who of course created Lotus 1, 2, 3, and then went to Microsoft. And we don't know exactly how he screwed up Microsoft, but he did. And then left, and this is his new thing,
Right.
with a lot of help from venture capitalists, and smart programmers. And it's free right now. So should I play Aaron's? So here's the Taco interface on my iPhone 6 Plus. It'll add people from your contact list. And it's funny because when I joined last night, there were 2 people on it.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, everybody seems to be using it. The idea is you could make phone calls, VoIP calls, right?
Right.
But you can also send audio messages, kind of like iMessage. So this is Aaron's message, so I could play it back. But then I could... Is that the Aaron Mahler?
Mailer, yeah.
Mailer?
Aaron Mailer, yeah.
God, I knew Aaron like 40 years ago. All right, I should say hi to him. So now I can message him back, just like iMessage, but I could text him, I could take a picture, and I can make a phone call. So the idea is teams might do this to work together in a kind of fluid multimedia fashion. Is that right?
Yes. So it's a good, you know, it is it's a really interesting application that we're experimenting with. It's not something that I've banged on a lot yet because it's only been out since last night.
Well, it also overlaps a little with iMessage.
It does, but I think that I think this takes that interaction, that process, and makes it more fluid than what iMessage is doing.
Right.
So I think that's the key there. And so
or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger and a lot of other messages.
All of those things are very simple and very easy to use. I think this is adding a layer of usefulness on top of that.
Well, certainly Ray knows groupware. I mean, he created the whole field, basically.
Yep.
I have this problem now where every time I try to use the new soundbite stuff, I talk like I'm talking to Siri. So I'll say, "Hey, Leo, comma," I'm just letting you, and I'm actually sending that as a message. And
I have to say that's the one thing that may keep me from giving up the iPhone. I love sending audio messages in my message. By the way, I call it iMessage because if you just say messages, which is its real name, you don't know what message, like generic messages, capital M messages, trademark, what?
iMessage too.
So I have to call it iMessage, and I apologize. I know that's not right, but I love sending, and I love the unified inbox. I mean, I think they've done some really good things with messages.
You can just raise it to hear it talk, and then you can say it back and put it back down, and it sends.
But one thing to be careful about when you're creating a message, apparently, and I haven't had this happen to me, but if you press and hold the camera, it will take a picture and then send it immediately? Is that how it works?
It's not exactly. I mean, that's the worst case scenario because we talked about this last week. Everything is based on this instant sticker sending that's so popular with the kids these days. If you hold down the camera and then let go, it'll send a selfie. If you move your finger back down, it will not.
If you hold the camera and you let go, so it'll take a selfie and then it'll send it instantly. See, it's not doing that.
If you touch the, take your finger off and then just put it down on the camera button. Yeah, so now.
Oh, and now if I let go, it'll send it?
You got to slide up to the camera icon first.
So just like messages. But
So
unfortunately,
it's still a two-step process, but it's not apparent to people.
So it would be easy to accidentally be holding your phone this way, take a picture, not realize it, and slide your finger up, and whoops. Yeah. You saw how easy that was. Yeah, all right.
Leo's naked face is on iMessage now.
Yeah. Well, and people tend to do this in bed, so. Hey, okay, talk about a weird third-party keyboard. We were talking about third-party keyboards, and of course, everybody, the kids these days, communicates not with text, but with animated GIFs. Riffsy, and I thank Jeff Needles for doing this during the show. He started sending me animated GIFs. I'm saying, what are you doing, Needles? Well, he's using a special keyboard that is not text, is a pure animated GIF keyboard. So
mostly for talking about cats.
Yeah. Well, it's thousands of them. So I'll press the globe. So that's the Apple keyboard. Press the globe once. That's the Swift key keyboard. Press it again. That's the swipe keyboard. I got too many keyboards installed. There's the emoji keyboard. Somewhere in here, I'm going to get that keyboard. This is a little buggy.
This is getting out of hand.
Hold it down. You'll get a list of keyboards. If you hold down that globe
because
button.
this is ridiculous. I had the wrong. No wonder I have the wrong phone. That's another thing. Only buy one phone. My suggestion to you. Okay.
Your day and night phone.
I have a special bespoke app on the night phone. All right, let's do this again. All right, now I'm in here. So this is what the keyboard looks like. You can pick an emotion like excited, and then it will give you a bunch of excited animated GIFs. And you just say, oh, look, here's, I never can remember that guy's name. You can copy it to video, copy the GIF, or you can paste it into a link in, or you could just paste it in into your, and so you see, now I don't know, Jeff explained to me, because some of these are big, and then some of these are little. But you can have an entire animated GIF conversation. Is it GIF or
With Casey
GIF?
Liss. You can finally talk to Casey Liss.
I can finally do it. Jeff, how come some are big and some are little? Is there a reason?
Because that's how big they are when they found them.
Maybe they're just not very big. So if I wanted to get the Old Spice guy, do I just drag it to you?
No, you tap it.
I just tap it.
And then it says it's in your clipboard, and then you paste it.
Ah, okay. So you can paste the link.
Leo is tapping the Old Spice guy for people who are listening
And
and
now
watching.
I will paste the Old Spice guy, and I will now send the Old Spice guy to Needles.
I don't know about the whole.
And it's been sent. So there you go. It's free. It's called Riffsy, RIFFSCY, GIF keyboard. If you start getting a lot of animated GIFs in your inbox, you'll know why.
It's a reason to upgrade to iOS 8 right there.
I love the human race. Really, I hope you guys stick around for another 1,000 years.
It's the new fart app.
There's nothing so simple, useful, practical, and functional and long-awaited that can't be on the first day turned into something gloriously and heroically stupid. God bless all of you.
You're never going to get a text message from me again. I'm going to just send animated GIFs. There's a huge variety in here.
Amazing.
Some have sound.
That
Some
could
are
be
in
annoying.
odd languages. I don't even know what language that is. Oh, I see. This is, these are, see, I'm just not with it with the memes. This is some sort of meme machine. Wow. And are they going to add more all the time?
You can't add your own.
How could they not?
How could they not? So let me just send
Because
one.
eventually, no matter how many GIFs you have, you will need more.
So why are they? Some of them are just little, and some of them are big. Oh, that's the animals being dicks one where he slaps the penguin into the water. That's me. They should be bigger. Oh, now I'm getting more. All right, thank you. Ruined my iPhone. You can't do that on Android. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining. What a fun show.
Yeah.
This is fun. I like it when there's something to talk about on this show. Andy Ihnatko is available at the Chicago Sun-Times. He is a regular on this show.
I'm very happy to be
dearly.
so.
And he's
I have
removed the Instagram filter from his screen.
Exactly. By unplugging and plugging something back again. Sorry about that. I also have a new video series that is temporary, that I wanted to just learn how to do YouTube videos and stick to a schedule. So episode 12 got posted today. I'm posting 2 more, and then I'm going to decide whether I'm going to continue doing it. But there are at least 12 videos online of me in a setting much like this, and in a series of hotel rooms talking about things that you would figure that I would be talking about.
It's good, and it's what is the least I could do?
I call it the very least that I could do, because the first episode shows the premise of why I'm doing this experiment, figuring that I hate doing videos. They're too hard to do. I overthink them. So I figure, what if I tell myself I can just do the very, very least I can possibly do that would count as a YouTube video? And yet I'm still doing like 10 to 20 minute and sometimes a 50-minute video.
That could be the least.
But I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it.
12 episodes. It's youtube.com/Andy Ihnatko.
Ihnatko.
Ihnatko. IHNATKO.
Correct.
Rene Ritchie's at imore.com, and the growing list of wonderful iMore publications, including Crackberry and that green toy robot. What is it called?
Android Central.
Android Central.
Yeah.
So good to have you on, as always.
Great to be here.
Sorry.
Your phone's ringing.
I know. I didn't know
It's not me.
did that.
How do we make ringtones now on iOS 8 with iTunes? The old method doesn't seem to work anymore. Maybe it's because I'm in Yosemite. They probably broke it on Yosemite.
Complicated.
It's complicated. See, but you know who I ask? Rene Ritchie, because he'll know, and he'll do a piece on it. Thank you for being here, Rene. We appreciate it, as always. Thanks to Mr. Alex Lindsay, who we're seeing more of. You were right. Now that you moved.
I told you.
Leave town and we see more of you. Thanks also for the question engine. That's a really
it's
great
getting there.
really nice what you're doing with that.
We're having a lot of fun with it, and definitely let us know what you think of it. We are having a lot of fun working on it, and we got a lot of features we're still planning to add. Also, I just thought there's an article. If you follow me on Twitter, I just posted it. But our motion capture studio, the third in Africa after Nigeria and South Africa, opened last week, and got some press coverage.
Yeah.
But we are. Kevin Hansen and Deanna Matthews was from our company. We're down there for the last month training everybody on how to use it. So check it out.
Yep. Well, we thank you for being here. We do the show every Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC on twit.tv. And we do love it if you're here live. We really interact quite a bit with the audience, both with the question engine and our chat room. But if you can't make it live, on-demand audio and video always available after the fact at twit.tv/MBW for MacBreak Weekly, or wherever your podcasts are aggregated. Do subscribe if you can, whether it's in our various Twit apps, all by wonderful third-party developers, or the podcast app. Is Apple's podcast app working better? No.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
It's actually it's actually usable now. It's not something that you give to your kid when they've spilled paint on the rug.
Okay. So no more a punishment, almost a pleasure. So if you can use that and subscribe, that'd be great too. Thanks for joining us. Now back to work, because break time is over.